The protagonist, Jiang Huaixing, is reborn in 2010, inheriting a counterfeit mobile phone factory. Subsequently, he activates a black technology lottery system. Observing his first drawn entry, Jiang Huaixing casually places his hands in his pockets, a smile unconsciously creeping across his face. Entry, Succubus. Effect 1. Increases host's personal charm by 40. Effect 2. Enhances the research and development speed of all employees in the company by 200. Effect 3. Boosts the work enthusiasm of all employees in the company by 200. Effect 4. Improves the work efficiency of all employees in the company by 100. Chapter 1. Rebirth. What on earth? His mind felt foggy, akin to being forcibly awakened from a deep slumber. One hand pressed against his head, while the other propped him up from the sofa. Where am I? This does not seem to be my home. As Jiang Huaixing reflected, he recalled resigning due to the adverse economic conditions and struggling to find work. He had been frantically sending out resumes from home, but to no avail. As the new year approached, he had contemplated delivering takeout as a temporary measure to earn some money. Little did he know, upon stepping outside, he was confronted by a large red truck. And then everything went black. Where am I? Did I somehow end up in someone else's home? As Jiang Huaixing pondered, he surveyed the unfamiliar surroundings. Suddenly, a multitude of unfamiliar memories surged through his mind. After a dazed moment, he finally regained his composure and understood the situation. He had traversed into another realm, inhabiting the body of a wealthy heir who shared his name. Seated on the sofa, Jiang Huaixing perused the memories of his predecessor. He discovered that the historical trajectory of this world closely mirrored his previous life, yet there were notable differences. While he had been a recent university graduate struggling to secure employment, his counterpart had already established a fully owned company. To put it succinctly, the disparity between them was monumental. The reason behind his rebirth soon became clear. The original owner's parents had tragically passed away in a car accident 3 months earlier, leaving him to naively take over the mobile phone company. The current year was 2010, and the mobile industry was evolving as it did in his past life. The iPhone 4 had just been released, igniting a smartphone revolution that hastened the decline of feature phones. Major manufacturers were transforming, and capital was flooding into the mobile sector. As for the original company, if the major brands were likened to towering mountains, his predecessor's company was merely a boulder beside them, merely filling space. It was generously referred to as an obscure mobile manufacturer, but in truth, it was a knockoff brand. Previously, their phones were merely adaptations of generic designs provided by Lianku, with minimal alterations before being sold under their own label. Despite a shipment exceeding 600,000 units last year, their earnings paled in comparison to what major brands earned in a single month. Fortunately, the company possessed its own research and development team and assembly line. However, upon witnessing the explosive popularity of the iPhone 4, the original owner fancied the idea of developing a smartphone. Unfortunately, the lack of technical staff hindered progress, and the shipment of feature phones continued to dwindle. With a lack of experience and the fierce competition in the mobile industry, both internal and external pressures mounted. Just yesterday, in a bid to relieve stress, the original owner resorted to drinking, only to tragically lose his life in the process. It was in this manner that Jiang Huaixing found himself reborn after being struck by a truck. Upon realizing this, Jiang Huaixing felt a wave of despair. No way. He had just arrived and was already faced with the prospect of job hunting again. System? Is there a system present? He called out in his mind. In an instant, a voice echoed in his head. Ding! The black technology lottery system has been activated. Congratulations, host, on receiving a beginner's gift package. Upon hearing the voice, Jiang Huaixing exhaled in relief. Of course, a traveler cannot be without a system. System, open the beginner's gift package. Ding! The beginner's gift package has been opened. Congratulations, host, on acquiring one lottery opportunity. System, initiate the lottery. Ding! Extracting entry. Extraction successful. Congratulations, host, on obtaining the entry, Succubus. Jiang Huaixing eagerly examined the entry he had drawn. He could hardly wait to utilize it. Afterward, he touched his face, noticing no significant change. He proceeded to the bathroom, gazing into the mirror. The original owner, burdened by stress and sleepless nights, exhibited a shiny complexion, dark circles, and a few pimples, rendering his once handsome face somewhat puffy. However, after activating the entry, the dark circles, blemishes, and puffiness vanished, as if his face had been meticulously refined. Though his eyes and nose remained unchanged, he appeared significantly more attractive. Gazing at his reflection, he could not help but exclaim, "I'm quite handsome." After indulging in a moment of self-admiration, Jiang Huaixing returned to the sofa to delve into the system's introduction. The description was straightforward. With each accumulation of prestige, he could earn prestige points, and upon reaching 1 million points, he could participate in another lottery. Though not every lottery would yield an entry, it did not diminish the system's prowess. The effect of the entry drawn from the beginner's gift package would ensure he could navigate this world quite comfortably. Even if the company faced dire straits or even collapsed, the benefits of this entry would allow him to rise again and attain greatness. Having comprehended the essence of the system, Jiang Huaixing continued to explore the original owner's memories to better understand the current state of the company. The firm was named Qinxing Technology Company, Limited, founded by the original owner's father in Shenzhen. Its primary business revolved around mobile phone manufacturing. During the era dominated by counterfeit devices, Qinxing Technology was among the more formidable players. At its peak, the company boasted an annual shipment exceeding 800,000 units. However, following a downturn in the real estate market and the financial crisis, the original owner's father had purchased an office building for him in Nanshan, Shenzhen, and the factory and industrial land also belonged to him. After its zenith, Qinxing Technology's shipments gradually declined, and the company's fortunes plummeted further after the original owner's father passed away. Having grasped the general situation of the company, Jiang Huaixing tidied himself up and set off for the office. Chapter 2. Determination in Research and Development. Jiang Huaixing drove his car out of the garage, following the route etched in his memory as he headed toward the company. As he navigated the roads in his vehicle, he couldn't help but reflect on the situation. In my previous life, I lacked a car, a house, and savings. To my surprise, I found myself possessing everything after an unexpected reincarnation. Coupled with the system, I can confidently assert that I now lack for nothing. After a moment of introspection, Jiang Huaixing regained his focus and drove earnestly toward the office. Half an hour later, Jiang Huaixing arrived at the company, parked his vehicle in his designated spot, and proceeded to enter through the main entrance. He then took the elevator to the 5th-floor office. Seated at his desk, Jiang Huaixing twirled a pen in one hand while the other supported his chin, contemplating how to design the first smartphone for his company. He jotted down his thoughts on paper and sketched the outline of the phone. Thus, he spent the entire morning refining his ideas. After lunch and a brief respite, he glanced over the smartphone proposal he had developed that morning. Satisfied with the outcome, he summoned his assistant. "Please come in," he called, and the office door swung open to reveal a sweet-faced girl in a suit. His assistant, Su Yun, a recent university graduate. "Mr. Jiang, what can I do for you?" she inquired. "Please notify the heads of the R&D department to gather in the conference room in 10 minutes, Jiang Huaixing instructed. "Understood, Mr. Jiang. I'll go now," Su Yun replied. 10 minutes later, Jiang Huaixing entered the conference room and took his seat at the head of the table. After surveying the room and confirming that all project leaders from the R&D department were present, he addressed Zhou Ku, the department head. "What is the current progress on our smartphone?" A man in a black shirt, sporting a close-cropped hairstyle and black glasses, responded. "We have made some advancements in hardware integration through reverse engineering of the Apple IV. However, progress on the software front has been sluggish due to the need for customization on the Android system and interface optimization, which requires considerable time." Upon hearing Zhou Ku's remarks, Jiang Huaixing pondered for a moment. "This is precisely what I wish to discuss with you." After a brief pause, he continued, "I have designed a preliminary sketch for our smartphone." As he spoke, he passed the design to the group. "I have clearly marked the hardware specifications on the sketch, so I want to elaborate further. The most crucial aspect is that the appearance must be aesthetically pleasing and visually appealing. As for the software, the focus must be on the system. I envision a clean, minimalist interface that offers simplicity in operation. We should also include several built-in applications, such as our own mobile store. Finally, the phone should feature only 3 buttons, the left for the back function, the center for the home function, and the right for multitasking. The operation must be straightforward, intuitive enough for anyone to understand at a glance." "I understand, Mr. Jiang. We will tailor our development direction according to your specifications." The software team leader nodded in agreement. For the remainder of the meeting, Jiang Huaixing engaged the team in discussions about their aspirations, painted a vision for success, and mentioned a potential bonus for project achievements. "Let us all strive together to create our own smartphone. Although the journey ahead may be long, If we persevere, we will surely reach our destination. Even if the tasks at hand are daunting, with steadfast commitment, we will succeed. We must believe in ourselves and remain hopeful. We can overcome any obstacles. Let us go, Jiang Huaixing exclaimed, raising his right fist in an enthusiastic gesture as he delivered his passionate address. Let us go. The crowd echoed in unison. The fervor of Jiang Huaixing's speech inexplicably ignited a fire within everyone present, motivating them to plunge into their work immediately after the meeting concluded. Upon returning to his office, Jiang Huaixing reflected on the spirited demeanor of the RD team, marveling at their enthusiasm. In modern times, one can rise to prominence, much like in ancient times. He mused. With his thoughts gathered, he requested Su Yun to bring in the resumes of the RD team members. Shortly, Su Yun returned with a stack of resumes. After placing them on the desk, Jiang Huaixing began to peruse them. The first was from Zhou Ku, the head of the RD department, who had been recruited from a high-paying position at Meizhou, previously leading a team focused on smartphone hardware integration and bringing many of his team members along. The second resume belonged to Zhang Yuan, the leader of the software team, also recruited from Meizhou, who had previously overseen software optimization and brought half of his team with him. The third was from Li Ming, the head of the design team, who, while not the leader at Meizhou, was still a key player. Jiang Huaixing couldn't help but admire the original founder's tenacity. It was noteworthy that Meizhou was the first company to create a domestically recognized smartphone, making the recruitment of their talent a formidable challenge. Yet, the original founder had managed to do so. Having reviewed the resumes, Jiang Huaixing felt a renewed sense of determination. Despite the fact that Xinxing Technology was merely a lesser-known player in the industry, the talent assembled in the RD department inspired him to strive for excellence. With nearly 100 personnel in the RD division alone, it was clear that the original founder's resolve to establish a foothold in the smartphone market was unwavering. Rest assured, I will lead Xinxing smartphones to achieve global prominence, Jiang Huaixing silently vowed. He then summoned the HR representative to his office. Mr. Jiang, you called for me? Wang Jie from HR inquired. Please, have a seat, Jiang Huaixing gestured, and once Wang was settled, he continued. I called you here primarily to discuss my intention to continue recruiting engineers for smartphone development, to expedite our progress. Understood, Wang Jie replied. Good. Please proceed with this matter promptly, and you may return to your duties once you've managed it, Jiang Huaixing concluded. As soon as Wang Jie nodded in agreement and left, Jiang Huaixing turned his attention to the sales reports provided by the finance department the next day. The graphs depicting declining sales and profits painted a rather grim picture. Although Xinxing Technology remained profitable, the current trajectory suggested that a shift to losses was inevitable if changes were not implemented. Without intervention, the company would face a slow demise. Fortunately, Xinxing's financial status was still relatively stable, with ample cash flow available, funds Jiang Huaixing intended to invest in smartphone development. While the amount might seem insignificant compared to the budgets of international giants, the presence of the charming demon attribute would significantly reduce development costs and accelerate the pace of innovation. This is fundamentally the reason behind Jiang Huaixing's immense confidence in Xinxing Technology. Since the conclusion of yesterday's meeting, the enthusiasm within the RD department has surged dramatically. The clarity of their developmental approach has markedly improved, and the process itself has become exceptionally seamless. In the past, the development process often faced interruptions, leading to prolonged stagnation in certain areas. Such circumstances bred frustration over time, creating a vicious cycle of diminishing efficiency. Now, however, the situation has transformed entirely. If previously it was akin to a 240p stream, it now operates in the clarity of 720p HD. The development process flows with remarkable ease, and the more they work, the more invigorated they become. At times, they lose track of time, as if they have entered a state of flow. In this invigorating atmosphere, the RD department is brimming with vigor. For instance, within the software team, a team member gazes intently at the kernel driver code on the screen. Various potential bug fixes and optimization strategies swirling in their mind. This phenomenon is not an isolated occurrence, but rather the norm for the majority of team members. Such enthusiasm is not limited to the software team. It permeates other groups within the RD department as well. After perusing the financial report, Jiang Huaixing took a tour of the various departments within the company. He observed a vibrant atmosphere of passion across all teams, particularly within the RD department. which felt entirely different from his previous recollections. During prior visits, he had noted that many team members exhibited signs of fatigue, their eyes betraying a weary haze. Their complexions pale from late nights, brows furrowed, and corners of their eyes holding remnants of exhaustion. In stark contrast, the majority of the current RD members, though still showing slight dark circles beneath their eyes and a hint of pallor, radiated a flickering light in their gaze, their spirits undiminished. And while they wore traces of fatigue, their lips curved into hopeful smiles. Witnessing their spirited demeanor ignited a fervor within Jiang Huaixing. Seeing the entire company's staff so spirited, he returned to his office to focus on strategizing ways to stabilize sales of their feature phones before the launch of smart devices. Despite the current trend of declining sales among leading brands due to the impact of smartphones, a substantial base of new mobile users in the domestic market remains concentrated in the mid to low-end demographic, providing a stable foundation for feature phone sales. Thus, it is not yet the demise of counterfeit brands. However, with the anticipated release of the Mi 1 next year, the counterfeit brands will inevitably face a true crisis. Yet, Jiang Huaixing found himself at a loss for effective strategies to boost feature phone sales. Suddenly, he recalled the modifications made by Zhou Ku and others when they were initially recruited from Meijing. They had redesigned several models of feature phones for Qinxing technology. However, before the original team could bring these models to production, the iPhone 4 emerged, capturing the attention and admiration of the original team. Consequently, the original team decisively shifted all efforts towards smartphone development, leading to the complete suspension of new feature phone production and a singular focus on smartphones. This left Qinxing technology producing outdated models. It is worth noting that in Huiqiangbai, numerous counterfeit phone manufacturers, leveraging Lianca's turnkey solutions, managed to bypass complex RD processes, achieving rapid production cycles of 3 days for mold creation and 5 days for shipment. Some small workshops could even swiftly adapt product designs and functionalities to cater to varying market demands, such as those from rural towns or younger demographics. In this context, Qinxing Technology's continued production of older models cannot solely be attributed to the influence of smartphones. With this realization, Jiang Huaixing promptly retrieved the new phone designs that the RD department had previously crafted. These designs were meticulously detailed and aesthetically pleasing, reflecting the high standards of designers from Meijing. Jiang Huaixing sifted through the proposals and ultimately selected a design he deemed particularly appealing. Subsequently, he called for the production department manager, Li Jianjun, to come to his office. "Knock, knock, knock. Come in." Jiang Huaixing responded upon hearing the knock. A middle-aged man with a square face and dressed in work attire entered. "Please, have a seat," Jiang Huaixing invited. "Yes, President Jiang," Li Jianjun replied as he took a seat opposite Jiang Huaixing. "What can I do for you?" "Indeed, take a look at this design proposal first," Jiang Huaixing said. Handing over the selected design, Li Jianjun took the proposal and began to review it attentively. Jiang Huaixing sat back in his chair, sipping tea as he awaited Li Jianjun's assessment of the design. "How soon can we adjust the production line to manufacture the phones outlined in this proposal?" Jiang Huaixing inquired after Li Jianjun finished reviewing the document. "The core of the phone in this proposal is not significantly different from our previous models. The primary distinction lies in its appearance. We can adjust the production line within 2 days and begin mass production of this phone," Li Jianjun replied after a moment of contemplation. Jiang Huaixing nodded approvingly. "Excellent. Please expedite this matter. Additionally, I expect that while speed is a priority, the quality of the phones must remain strictly controlled." Li Jianjun reassured him, "No worries, President Jiang. While our phones may be entry-level, we maintain rigorous standards for quality." Jiang Huaixing had considerable faith in this assurance. After all, Qinxing Technology was recognized as a prominent player among counterfeit brands, partly due to the reliability of both its proprietary and OEM products. Notably, smartphones produced by Qinxing typically endure for around 3 years of normal use without issues. In a market saturated with numerous manufacturers in Huiqiangbai, Qinxing Technology has sustained its annual shipment volume of over 600,000 units despite declining sales. This success is attributed to the company's unwavering commitment to stringent quality control. A significant product failure could tarnish its reputation within the industry, jeopardizing relationships with reputable distributors who would be reluctant to engage in business thereafter, as no one wishes to jeopardize their own interests. For a company of Qinxing Technology's size, Reputation is paramount. Li Jianjun was efficient in his work. Upon receiving Jiang Huaixing's directives, he promptly headed to the factory to adjust the production line. Chapter 4. Online sales. Time flew by, and 2 days swiftly passed. Production manager Li Jianjun, visibly excited, held a freshly produced prototype in his hands. He hurried towards Jiang Huaixing's office, pausing briefly to knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Upon hearing Jiang Huaixing's voice, Li Jianjun entered and approached the desk. President Jiang, the prototype for the phone outlined in your proposal is ready. It is absolutely stunning. This is the most beautiful phone we have ever created. As he spoke, he handed the prototype to Jiang Huaixing. Upon receiving the phone, Jiang Huaixing could not help but admire its aesthetic appeal. The device featured a sleek, matte white body, devoid of the cheap plastic sheen, and felt just right in hand. At that moment, inspiration struck Jiang Huaixing. Well done. How is the production line adjustment coming along? Upon hearing this, Li Jianjun promptly responded, the production line has been debugged and is ready for mass production at any moment. Excellent, came the reply. Please prepare accordingly and notify the marketing and sales departments for a meeting this afternoon at 3 o'clock in the conference room. Once Li Jianjun exited, Jiang Huaixing reclined in his chair, contemplating the strategies he had devised over the past few days. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, in the conference room, Jiang Huaixing pushed open the large door, holding the newly designed mobile phone that Li Jianjun had just brought. Without a moment's hesitation, he strode directly to the main seat and took his place. The others, upon seeing Jiang Huaixing seated, turned their gazes toward him. Jiang Huaixing surveyed the room and declared, now that everyone is here, let us begin. Behold, this is the latest feature phone developed by Qinxing Technology. As he spoke, he passed the prototype to the attendees. The moment they laid eyes on the phone, expressions of astonishment spread across their faces. Observing their reactions, Jiang Huaixing felt a wave of relief wash over him. It appeared that this phone was not only appealing to him, but also to others. He then inquired, what do you all think of this phone? It's beautiful, stunning, far more attractive than our previous models. Upon hearing their responses, Jiang Huaixing stated, as you all are aware, Qinxing Technology has been experiencing a prolonged decline in both profits and sales. Relying solely on this phone and our current offline sales channels will scarcely halt our downward trajectory. Furthermore, continuing to develop offline sales channels in the present climate would yield minimal results. Thus, I propose we explore the development of online sales channels. This decision had been the culmination of much contemplation. Drawing on insights from the past, Jiang Huaixing analyzed the mobile phone market of 2010. During this period, while smartphones were thriving, the working-class populace in lower-tier markets and the middle-aged demographic in rural areas still required an affordable, durable, and long-lasting feature phone. Additionally, the cost of online traffic had yet to escalate, with platforms like Taobao and Jingxi focusing on penetrating these lower-tier markets. This presented a pivotal opportunity for Qinxing Technology. We could adopt a direct sales model through e-commerce platforms, he proposed. This would allow us to eliminate the markup imposed by distributors, thereby attracting consumers with more competitive pricing. At this juncture, the marketing manager, Li Junhui, interjected, however, if we proceed this way, our phone's price will diverge from that of the distributors. If they feel their profits are jeopardized, they will undoubtedly react negatively, potentially leading to greater losses for Qinxing Technology should our online sales falter. Acknowledging Li Junhui's concerns with a nod, Jiang Huaixing replied, your apprehensions are not without merit. However, I have already devised a solution. We can register a new brand specifically for online sales. This new phone can serve as the flagship product for this brand. In doing so, we will not need to worry about online pricing affecting our offline channels. Moreover, this approach allows us to distinguish the new brand from the existing Jiang phones, enabling it to shed the stigma associated with counterfeit and inferior products. The room resonated with nods of agreement from the attendees. The ensuing discussion centered around potential names for the new brand. The marketing team suggested using the name Qinxing for the new brand, to which Jiang Huaixing objected, as he preferred to reserve the Qinxing name for their self-developed smartphones. After considerable deliberation, they ultimately decided to name the new brand Baixing, inspired by the color of the prototype phone combined with the character for star. Regarding the selection of online channels, Jiang Huaixing prioritized Taobao, followed by Jingxi. Upon finalizing their choice of e-commerce platforms, they established a new team dedicated to online sales, temporarily composed of personnel from the marketing and sales departments. With plans to recruit additional members in the future, This team would focus on direct online sales, primarily utilizing Taobao and Jingxi for product promotion, order tracking, and sales data analysis. As the meeting concluded, everyone dispersed to undertake their assigned tasks. Marketing manager Li Junhui made his way directly to Taobao's headquarters with the prototype in hand. Taobao expressed keen interest upon learning that Huaixing intended to operate through a direct sales model, offering a 7-day no-questions-asked return policy with free shipping and a 1-year warranty. Consequently, they swiftly signed a launch agreement, securing a prominent position for Huaixing on Taobao's 3C product homepage. Simultaneously, Jingxi also decided to feature Huaixing on their 3C homepage. Motivated not only by the phone's exceptional value but also by their desire to expand their 3C category and capture the lower-tier market. With agreements in place with the e-commerce platforms, Jiang Huaixing hosted an internal launch event for Huaixing, promoting it across various websites. He also produced a video showcasing the factory quality inspection process, workers in gloves meticulously checking buttons, testing call quality, and assessing battery life, emphasizing that the production adhered to legitimate factory standards, thus dispelling any notions of counterfeit products. This video was prominently displayed on the store's homepage. After meticulous preparation, Huaixing officially commenced sales across multiple platforms. Chapter 5. Huaixing mobile phone. Following the official launch of Huaixing, Jiang Huaixing allocated a modest marketing budget, leading to the organization of company employees to masquerade as seasoned users infiltrating numerous forums, online communities, and labor groups to promote the phone. Instead of conventional advertisements, they opted for genuine user experience posts, such as, "Shocking. I bought my dad a 399 yuan phone, and he claims it functions better than my smartphone." And on-site testing, an extraordinary 7-day battery life, no more worries about running out of power. These posts meticulously detailed call durations and battery life, complemented by handwritten notes and real-time videos, with links provided at the end. Jiang Hai, a recent college entrant from a modest background, like many others, sought summer employment. After a long day, he returned home, exhausted, having settled his earnings with his employer. After a simple meal and a refreshing shower, he opened his roommate's computer to browse for a mobile phone on Taobao. Jiang Hai intended to purchase a new phone for his grandfather, whose device had recently malfunctioned. The needs of the elderly typically revolved around basic functionalities, making calls, durability, and longevity. Expecting to encounter the same familiar options, he was pleasantly surprised when the Jingxi website unveiled a new product. Upon viewing the Huaixing phone, Jiang Hai was immediately taken by its aesthetic appeal, and the price of 399 yuan, after applying a discount coupon, was particularly enticing. Initially, he suspected the phone might be a counterfeit, as attractive devices typically commanded higher prices. However, upon visiting the official store, he discovered it was a manufacturer-operated flagship store. The homepage featured a quality inspection video and a commitment to a 7-day return policy accompanied by a 1-year warranty, assurances that dispelled any doubts about the product's legitimacy. Subsequently, Jiang Hai explored Jingxi's website, where he found the Huaixing phone listed as well. This discovery further reassured him about the authenticity of the product. However, the price of this phone is quite similar to those of lesser-known brands, which indeed raises some concerns. It is important to note that the money to purchase the phone was painstakingly saved by Jiang Hai through distributing flyers. In July, during the sweltering heat of the sun, he donned a non-breathable mascot costume, and every time he removed it, he was drenched in sweat. It was precisely because this money was so hard-earned that Jiang Hai remained cautious. Yet, upon seeing the attractive price, he found himself in a dilemma. Just as he hesitated, someone in the group he worked with shared a screenshot of a White Star phone, accompanied by the caption, "Look at my new phone, bought by my daughter. Isn't it beautiful?" A flurry of responses followed, inquiring about its performance. Jiang Hai also chimed in with a question. The individual replied, "It's quite nice, and far more attractive than my previous phone." After seeing this response from a fellow group member, Jiang Hai returned to the purchasing page, scrutinizing it for a considerable time, then sought additional information about the White Star phone online. He discovered news regarding its launch event and found several posts about it on forums and discussion boards. Ultimately, Jiang Hai resolved to purchase a White Star phone. 2 days later, when the phone arrived, he eagerly unboxed it and was pleasantly surprised to find it even more appealing in reality than in the pictures. After testing it, he found no issues, which brought him a sense of relief. He then presented the phone to his grandfather. Upon receiving it, Jiang Hai's grandfather exclaimed, "Heavens, what a beautiful phone. How much did it cost?" He added, I hardly need such an extravagant device, and promptly returned it to Jiang Hai, urging him to return it. Jiang Hai, bemused, replied, I bought it online. It wasn't expensive at all, just 399 yuan. Really? Don't deceive me, his grandfather insisted. Absolutely, I would have no reason to lie to you. After some back and forth, Jiang Hai's grandfather finally accepted the phone. Once he had it, he could hardly wait to show it off outside. Jiang Hai, realizing this, understood his grandfather was going out to boast. With the White Star phone in hand, his grandfather swaggered down the street, eventually arriving at his usual chess-playing spot. A group was gathered, engrossed in a chess match. Suddenly, someone spotted Jiang Hai's grandfather and called out, Old Jiang, you've come. Jiang Hai's grandfather waved back, Old Li. You're here early today? Old Li quickly noticed the phone in Jiang Hai's grandfather's hand and remarked, Old Jiang, you got a new phone. What happened to the old one? Jiang Hai's grandfather replied, that one broke, so I left it at home. This new phone was a gift from my clever grandson. As he approached, Old Li said, let me see your new phone. Upon seeing it, he exclaimed, wow, this phone looks fantastic. It must be quite pricey. Hearing this, Jiang Hai's grandfather smiled and waved his hand, saying, not at all. It's only 399. Old Li gasped, is that true? Such a beautiful phone for just 399? My Nokia, which cost over 800, doesn't he even compare? What brand is this phone? He inquired. Jiang Hai's grandfather responded, it's called White Star. My grandson said it's a new brand that offers coupons, which makes it so affordable. Moreover, it can only be purchased online. It's not available in physical stores. Someone interjected, isn't that a sign of counterfeit goods? Some fakes don't last long. Jiang Hai's grandfather explained, this is a new brand. My grandson assured me there's a 7-day return policy and a 1-year warranty. Plus, you can find news about White Star online. It's just not widely known yet. Perfect. I need to replace my phone too. I'll ask my granddaughter to buy me a White Star phone, someone stated, promptly dialing their granddaughter. The group began exchanging thoughts about the White Star phone. Listening to their conversation, Jiang Hai's grandfather felt a sense of pride. During the initial week of sales, White Star Technology Company, Limited recorded fewer than 100 orders. Li Junhui from the marketing department felt disheartened upon seeing these figures, concluding that the online channel had failed. To his surprise, a week later, total orders exceeded 1,500. Chapter 6. Sales as days turned into weeks. The sales of the White Star phone gradually increased, reaching over 260 units sold daily by August. In the conference room, Li Junhui, holding a sales report for the White Star phone, exclaimed with excitement, as of July, total sales have surpassed 5,000 units. Along with our offline channels, including Jiang phones and private label phones, last month's sales have finally stabilized and shown a slight increase. Although the growth is modest, it marks a positive beginning. Furthermore, the growth rate of the White Star phone continues to rise. According to our market department's projections, it won't be long before we achieve daily sales exceeding 300 units. The approval rate for the White Star phone is also remarkably high. Hearing this news, Jiang Huaixing couldn't help but smile. I plan to take all our self-operated offline channel phones off the shelves and convert them into exclusive White Star phone stores. After taking a sip of water, he continued, I will allocate more marketing funds to intensify our promotional efforts. We will invite more reviewers to evaluate the White Star phone alongside various brands, highlighting our brand against larger brands and showcasing our cost-effectiveness against smaller ones. Additionally, we will hire a group of online commenters to post reviews across major forums. We want a range of opinions, not just all positive, but also some critical and neutral, ensuring a balanced perception. This marketing campaign aims to reinforce the notion that White Star is a niche brand among potential users. He then instructed the R&D department to make adjustments, such as increasing the screen ratio and enhancing battery life, and to launch the White Star 2, which would be priced slightly higher than the White Star 1. We do not need to produce too many White Star 2 units, as our current customers primarily prioritize aesthetics and cost-effectiveness. The purpose of White Star 2 is twofold: to diversify the White Star phone model lineup and to elevate the price of our White Star phones, thereby reducing the extent of discounts on the White Star 1 and positioning its price above 400 yuan. After the meeting, Jiang Huaixing requested the R&D department to dedicate some time to develop the White Star 2 according to his vision. Before long, the R&D team successfully designed the White Star 2. Jiang Huaixing couldn't help but marvel at the speed of the process, even with the Charm Demon advantage. The White Star 2 appeared more aesthetically pleasing, with a more harmonious button layout and screen ratio compared to the White Star 1. Although the modifications were minimal, the two phones seemed entirely distinct. In essence, the White Star 2 was merely a revamped version of the White Star 1, retaining similar core features. Otherwise, even the most proficient RD team, bolstered by the Charm Demon advantage, would not have been able to achieve such rapid design progress. Naturally, since the White Star 2 was priced higher, it also incorporated superior components. For instance, the phone's casing felt more premium, the screen was larger with enhanced resolution, and the battery capacity had also increased. Jiang Huaixing promptly instructed the production department manager to commence mass production. The White Star 2 has officially launched on major e-commerce platforms. Priced at 669 yuan, it comes with a limited-time 50 yuan discount coupon, bringing the price down to 619 yuan. Meanwhile, the coupon for the White Star 1 has been adjusted to 30 yuan, resulting in a final price of 419 yuan after the coupon is used. The White Star 2 is priced 9 yuan higher than the Nuojia 2690. Consequently, Jiang Huaixing did not harbor high hopes for the White Star 2. However, to his surprise, within just a week, the sales of the White Star 2 in August surpassed those of the White Star 1. Initially, it was assumed that the phone's price would hinder its popularity, yet the White Star 2 unexpectedly became a bestseller. Its sales even temporarily eclipsed that of the budget-friendly Nuojia 2690. The sales of the White Star 1 stabilized at around 300 units per day. Moreover, this device attracted the attention of sales representatives from Taobao and Jingxi, leading to a surge in sales. This phenomenon also spontaneously caught the eye of some mobile phone reviewers, who, under the influence of monetary incentives, praised the aesthetic appeal of the White Star 2. This drew the attention of a larger student demographic, who typically operate within a limited budget when purchasing smartphones. With summer vacation in full swing and many university students preparing to start classes in a month, there was a collective desire to acquire their own phones before the semester begins. The sudden popularity of the White Star 2 online caught their eye, with its pristine white body striking an immediate impression. In this price range, a phone boasting such visual appeal rapidly spread among the student community. The success of the White Star 2 thrilled Jiang Huaixing even more than that of the White Star 1. This was not merely a pleasant surprise. More importantly, the profit margin for each White Star 2 was nearly 100 yuan higher than that of the White Star 1. Yet, the most significant aspect was that the triumph of the White Star 2 established the White Star brand itself. This not only indicated that Qinxing Technology had finally shed the label of counterfeit and obscure brands, but it also signified that the company's future self-developed smartphones would begin from a significantly elevated position. This was the true reason for Jiang Huaixing's elation. Thus, in light of the explosive success of the White Star phones, Qinxing Technology swiftly concluded August. During the monthly meeting in August, every employee wore a beaming smile. Marketing manager Li Junwei excitedly reported the online sales statistics for August. Throughout the month, the White Star 1 sold 987 units, while the White Star 2 achieved sales of 782 units. Our offline specialty stores for the White Star series recorded sales of 786 units. In total, the White Star series sold 555 phones. Including our CXUI phones and private label phones, the total sales for Qinxing in August exceeded 70,000 units. Furthermore, the growth rate for the White Star 2 continued to rise. We anticipate that in September, sales of the White Star 1 will reach 10,000 units, while those of the White Star 2 will reach 18,000 units. Upon hearing Li Junhui's report, Jiang Huaixing could not contain his happiness. With a smile on his lips and a light-hearted tone, he remarked, "The remarkable monthly sales of the White Star phones are a testament to everyone's relentless dedication. To express my gratitude for your hard work, I have arranged for the finance department to issue bonuses. I hope everyone will continue to strive forward. I believe that together, we can elevate Qinxing Technology to new heights." The crowd, upon hearing this, was filled with excitement. Their hard work was ultimately for profit, and the prospect of bonuses brought smiles to their faces. Chapter 7. CXUI. With last month's events behind us, it is time to focus on the present. Jiang Huaixing brought the team's attention back to work. The first to speak was the RD department manager, Zhou Ku. Our progress on the smartphone development is exceedingly smooth. Notably, we have completed our custom mobile operating system based on Android, specifically designed for Qinxing. As soon as Zhou's words fell, Jiang Huaixing felt a surge of exhilaration. He could barely contain his excitement, clenching his fists and breathing rapidly with anticipation, his voice trembling with eagerness. Is that true? Can you demonstrate it for us right now? Certainly. I will have Jiang Yuan bring the computer over for a live demonstration, Zhou Ku replied. Jiang Huaixing immediately said, excellent, please notify him to come. Zhou Ku promptly called Jiang Yuan to bring the operating system to the conference room. Moments later, Jiang Yuan arrived, greeting Jiang Huaixing. Hello, Chairman Jiang. Jiang Huaixing, unable to wait any longer, interrupted, no need for pleasantries. Please proceed with your demonstration of the mobile system. This was a day he had anticipated for a long time. All right, Chairman Jiang, Jiang Yuan responded. He connected the computer and began the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, our system is a modified mobile operating system derived from Android. Our department has named it CXUI, a custom mobile operating system tailored for the future of Qinxing technology. He then proceeded with the demonstration. This is the startup animation for CXUI, featuring a simple display of the system's name, with each letter alternating in brightness. Jiang Yuan then described the features of CXUI through its user interface, interaction logic, and core functional modules. That concludes our overall presentation of CXUI. The entire explanation took about 10 minutes and was remarkably smooth. After watching Jiang Yuan's demonstration, Jiang Huaixing's expression reflected satisfaction. The operation of CXUI was impressively streamlined, with nearly every action simplified by 1 or 2 steps compared to the native Android system. Though seemingly minor, these simplifications made the native Android experience feel cumbersome in comparison. Jiang Yuan, you and your team have done an exceptional job. I will arrange for the finance department to issue bonuses for your efforts. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yuan's lips involuntarily curled into a smile, feeling that his team's hard work had not gone unnoticed. Thank you, Chairman Jiang. Jiang Huaixing waved his hand dismissively, saying, you all deserve this. Now, your software team has heavy tasks ahead. With our mobile operating system now customized, we can post on major Android forums to promote CXUI. We should invite mobile enthusiasts to download CXUI and try it out. This way, we can gather user feedback to identify areas for improvement, while also advertising our future smartphones. Jiang Yuan nodded in agreement. Understood, Chairman Jiang. I happen to know some seasoned mobile users. We could establish a forum for CXUI and invite them. Following an enthusiastic discussion among Jiang Huaixing, Zhou Ku, and Jiang Yuan, they finalized their plan, all wearing satisfied expressions. Meanwhile, the production department indicated that with the rising sales of the White Star phones, there might be a shortage of equipment and personnel, requesting the addition of resources and an expansion of the production line. Upon hearing the production department's needs, Jiang Huaixing agreed to purchase new equipment and hire additional staff. However, considering that establishing a production line is not an endeavor that can be accomplished overnight, it was decided to reduce the volume of OEM production and reallocate those personnel to the operations at White Star. Despite the fact that OEM production yields tens of thousands of units monthly, in terms of profit, it pales in comparison to the earnings from White Star. The reason Jiang Huaixing did not completely eliminate this segment at once is that it had previously been essential for maintaining the operations of Qinxing technology and for filling excess capacity. Moreover, OEM production also carries the risks of inventory and after-sales service. Previously, there was no alternative. Now, with the emergence of White Star smartphones, it is natural to gradually diminish this business. Once the contracts with those manufacturers expire, Qinxing will not renew them, instead redirecting capacity towards the production of White Star smartphones and even smart devices. In fact, Jiang Huaixing was not keen on continuing with the JIKE mobile phone line, as it does not generate substantial profits. However, he realized that this device was still necessary to sustain offline channels. There is also a possibility of needing a brand for low-end smartphones in the future, so he decided to retain it. Then there is the e-commerce team. Although this group was formed recently and has recruited a considerable number of staff, the workload has increased significantly due to the White Star smartphone, prompting requests for further personnel additions. Finally, after breaking down the September plan from product iteration to staffing arrangements, the discussions in the conference room gradually subsided, and each individual turned to their tasks with a clear objective. A few days after the meeting, in the software division of the RD department, the day of the official release of CXUI V01 had arrived on September 9th. The software team was conducting the final review checks before launch. Jiang Yuan observed that each member had completed testing their respective sections. Taking a deep breath, he announced, "We are ready to launch CXUI." following his words. The only sounds that remained in the software team were the clicks of mice and the tapping of keyboards. A few minutes later, as CXUI was successfully uploaded, everyone eagerly picked up various brand smartphones to download CXUI for online testing. Finally, after all series of smartphones passed testing, the collective fatigue from the preceding days dissipated, replaced by a profound sense of relief. It was during this period that, through the relentless efforts of Jiang Yuan and others in recruiting participants, the CXUI forum was finally established. Although the number of members was modest, with just over 80 individuals, they were all seasoned smartphone users. Simultaneously, Jiang Huaixing organized a team to promote aggressively across major smartphone forums, opening one account after another as others were banned. Nevertheless, on the first day, CXUI's download count barely surpassed 100. The following day, Jiang Huaixing's first task upon arriving at work was to check the forum and, upon seeing only a little over 100 downloads, he sighed softly. Although CXUI had not soared to great heights, he was not overly disheartened, as this was somewhat anticipated. After all, the foundation of CXUI was still insufficiently robust. This was not to say that the system itself was lacking. Feedback from users who had flashed the system had been largely positive. The issue lay in the accumulation of time and the insufficient reach of its reputation. There simply were not enough users aware of it. Though not disappointed, seeing the actual numbers still left a tinge of melancholy. After all, it is human nature to harbor optimistic biases, especially after recently witnessing the meteoric rise of White Star 2. Who wouldn't fantasize about CXUI achieving similar overnight success? Jiang Huaixing rubbed his temples, dispelling those unrealistic expectations and calming his restless spirit, redirecting his focus to the tasks at hand. After reviewing the financial report, Jiang Huaixing, accompanied by Li Junwei, visited a battery supplier. With the continuous increase in sales of White Star 2, there remained potential for price reductions due to the previously low volume of components purchased for this tier of smartphones. It is well known that the more one buys, the cheaper the price becomes. Thus, to minimize costs as much as possible, he intended to personally evaluate and negotiate with suppliers for the smartphone's essential electronic components, including screens, casings, and batteries. If they refused, well, Xinxing Technology is situated in Shenzhen, specifically in Huaiqiangbei, known as the electronics capital of the country. In Huaiqiangbei, whether one seeks complete smartphones or the full suite of electronic components for manufacturing, one can find it all within a day. The multitude of factories producing mobile phone components is staggering. So, searching for suppliers of electronic components here is not just easy, it is almost effortless. Jiang Huaixing planned to visit a battery supplier today. Previously, Xinxing Technology primarily manufactured low-end imitation devices, hence the batteries purchased were mostly of 550 mAh capacity. Consequently, both the 650 mAh battery for White Star 1 and the 900 mAh battery for White Star 2 could still be acquired at even lower wholesale prices. Of course, larger and superior battery manufacturers existed, but negotiating lower prices with them proved more challenging. Today's battery supplier, while not a major factory, was reliable in terms of quality and had been a long-term collaborator. Hello, Mr. Jiang. It has been a while since we last met. A rotund man in a black short-sleeved shirt, slightly balding, greeted him with a smile as soon as he stepped out of the car. Hello, Mr. Li, Jiang Huaixing replied, returning the smile and shaking his hand. Mr. Li, I presume you are aware of the purpose of my visit? Ah, Mr. Jiang. The prices we are offering for the 650 mAh and 900 mAh batteries are already quite low. The cost for the 650 mAh battery is 22 yuan each, and for the 900 mAh, it is merely 30 yuan each. This is truly our bottom line. Any lower, and we would incur losses. Remember, these are original batteries, not those compatible ones. Our batteries come with brand authorization fees, and quality control costs are high. You know that original batteries simply cannot be compared to those compatible ones when it comes to safety and endurance. Mr. Li, you are not being forthright. Last month, Xinxing Technology alone ordered over 10,000 of the 650 mAh batteries and even directly ordered 20,000 of the 900 mAh batteries. The prices you are offering for these two batteries do not reflect the quantities we are discussing. I'll propose a figure. 19 yuan for the 650 mAh battery, and 26 yuan for the 900 mAh battery. Mr. Jiang, that price is too low. We would hardly make any profit. Mr. Li, let us speak plainly. Chinching technology will require over 25,000 of these two battery types combined each month. Furthermore, we are longtime acquaintances, and you know that our payments are always timely. Mr. Li furrowed his brow, deep in thought. Jiang Huaixing remained patient, observing him. An air of silence enveloped the office. Ultimately, Mr. Li capitulated. All right, we will proceed with the prices you proposed, but we need to sign the contract right away. Good. Since Mr. Li is agreeable, let us proceed. After some further negotiations while signing the contract, they finally secured the partnership. By the time the agreement was settled, it was already 7 p.m. At this hour, a celebratory dinner was inevitable. After a round of drinks and a hearty meal, Jiang Huaixing excused himself under the pretense of inebriation and departed with his team. Leaning against the back seat of the car, he rubbed his temples. Although he was slightly inebriated, his mind continued to ponder which accessories could further reduce costs. It is essential to recognize that while the price reduction for each mobile accessory may seem minimal, with some components yielding only a few cents in savings, the cumulative effect across numerous accessories can significantly enhance the profit margin of a single phone. In fact, the profit of a White Star phone could be elevated by at least 10 yuan. Time passed steadily, and during this period, Jiang Huaixing managed to bring costs down to their absolute limits. Naturally, this effort bore fruit, as the profit margin for the White Star phone increased by 16 yuan, surpassing Jiang Huaixing's initial estimates. Moreover, there was more good news. After this period of refinement, the download count for CXUI exceeded 5,000. It is noteworthy that CXUI was built from the ground up, yet thanks to its superior quality compared to other Android custom systems and its positive reputation, alongside vigorous promotion on various mobile forums, its downloads reached such heights. Additionally, due to the overwhelming acclaim for CXUI, its download rate continued to accelerate, and it was only a matter of time before it surpassed the 10,000 mark. The forum's membership was also on the rise. This series of encouraging developments left Jiang Huaixing feeling buoyant as he reclined in his office chair, eyes half closed, a smile playing at the corners of his lips, savoring the sweetness of the breeze wafting through the window. Chapter 9. Offline Distributors. Initially, Jiang Huaixing was leisurely reviewing the financial reports of the White Star series while reclining in his chair. The steadily rising curves of sales and profits were a sight to behold, contrasting sharply with the feelings he had experienced when he first arrived. Although Chinching Technology was receiving fewer orders for OEM business, resulting in a decline in shipment volumes, the profits from the White Star phones were exponentially higher than those from branded devices. Furthermore, as more smartphone engineers were recruited, the pace of development for smart devices accelerated. Jiang Huaixing believed it wouldn't be long before Chinching Technology transformed from a feature phone manufacturer into a smartphone producer. The mere thought of this brought an involuntary smile to his face. Suddenly, a knock on the door pulled him from his reverie. "Come in," he called out. As the door swung open, he saw it was Li Junhui. "Manager Li, what brings you here?" "Mr. Jiang, it's nothing significant. Some offline distributors have learned about the White Star phone and are interested in procuring stock from us," Li Junhui replied. Upon hearing this, Jiang Huaixing immediately declined without a second thought. He understood that establishing the White Star brand took considerable effort, and it was still too new to have made a lasting impact. Chinching Technology's priority was to maintain the integrity of the White Star brand. Allowing them to purchase stock now would likely result in lower prices, thus undermining the pricing structure of White Star. Such chaos could easily tarnish the brand's image. However, he was reluctant to abandon the offline channels entirely. At this moment, Jiang Huaixing recalled JIKE Mobile, which, due to a decrease in OEM business and the establishment of new production lines, faced overcapacity. Consequently, he decided to produce the remaining phone designs in batches, branding them under the JIKE name. This strategy resulted in surprisingly good sales for JIKE Mobile during this period. With this in mind, Jiang Huaixing proposed, "It is impossible to supply them with White Star phones. However, we could make slight adjustments to the White Star 1 and sell it under the JIKE banner. Naming it JIKE 1. We can explain that the production capacity for the White Star is currently insufficient, but we have a batch of phones similar to the White Star available. Would they be interested?" He added, "Of course, the pricing cannot be too low." "Understood, Mr. Jiang. I will communicate this to them right away," Li Junhui responded. To Jiang Huaixing's surprise, these distributors were willing to initially take a batch of stock to evaluate. The wholesale price for the JIKE 1 was not inexpensive, set at 300 yuan. Later, Jiang Huaixing learned that the reason for their willingness stemmed from the recent favorable reception of these new models among terminal distributors. After addressing these matters, Jiang Huaixing logged into the CXUI forum. The online membership had surpassed 70,000, with downloads exceeding 9,000, approaching the 10,000 mark. Observing these figures, Jiang Huaixing knew CXUI had achieved success, especially considering the platform had only been launched for less than a month, making these numbers quite commendable. In the R&D department, Zhou Ke led a team of engineers diligently working amidst a plethora of electronic components from an array of recently released smartphones, including the Apple IV, Samsung Galaxy S9000, Meizu M8, and HTC Desire G7. These devices had been acquired for analysis. Understanding the necessity of learning from advanced experiences, the R&D team had purchased popular smartphones on the market to dismantle and analyze their materials. Every removable component of these devices was thoroughly examined. The architecture of smartphones significantly differs from that of feature phones. For instance, while feature phones only support basic functions such as calls and texts without a dedicated CPU, smartphones not only encompass these functions but also facilitate complex computations. The integration of hardware components presents a formidable challenge. Inadequate integration of smart hardware can lead to frequent lags, crashes, and even system failures. Poor compatibility can also result in increased power consumption. Therefore, the primary purpose of acquiring these smartphones was to study their internal structures and hardware integration. Despite the challenges, Zhou Ke found that his concentration and cognitive abilities had sharpened considerably. This sentiment was shared among all members of the R&D department. The overall smartphone development process was progressing smoothly, as he and his team had just completed the fundamental framework for the new smartphone. Although he had previously worked on similar tasks at Meizu, he felt that the current environment was far more conducive to productivity. For example, regarding the software team, Zhou Ke initially believed that their system would be the last to be completed. To his astonishment, they finished the mobile operating system first and had already begun internal testing. In his time at Meizu, he had known Zhang Yuan, and they had often spent considerable time troubleshooting bugs. He recalled instances when he saw team members rushing to the restroom, overwhelmed by their workload. Once, Zhou Ke observed an employee meticulously scheduling every aspect of their daily tasks, even allocating time for restroom breaks. He had assumed that such a hectic pace would hinder efficiency. However, the productivity levels were remarkably high. Puzzled, Zhou Ke could only attribute this to the positive work atmosphere at Chunsheng, which seemed to stimulate their creative impulses. He then immersed himself back into his work. In the software team, Zhang Yuan was currently addressing feedback from forum users, making targeted modifications. Although the mobile operating system had been customized, the suggestions from some mobile enthusiasts on the CXUI forum proved invaluable. In the forum, there are top smartphone enthusiasts brought in by them, whose insights greatly assist in refining CXUI. Zhang Yuan intends to learn from the Orange Friday model pioneered by Xiaomi. This approach, central to Xiaomi's mobile operating system, serves as a benchmark for collaborative product development among domestic internet users, featuring a closed-loop model where the system is updated every Friday based on profound user participation. They plan to summarize user feedback from the week and implement improvements, followed by a fixed update on the subsequent Monday. Chapter 10. The meteoric rise of CXUI since adopting the Orange Friday model. The entire software development team under Zhang Yuan's leadership has united in purpose, each member working diligently to advance the CXUI update tasks. Consequently, the CXUI forum has witnessed a surge in user activity, with an increase in downloads. Cheng Lei, a seasoned smartphone user and ardent Android enthusiast, became an avid fan of Xiaomi after being captivated by the emergence of MIUI. Initially plagued by bugs, MIUI evolved through numerous updates over a month, earning accolades as a game-changer in the Android ROM landscape, even being hailed as a standard in the custom ROM community. This attracted a multitude of native Android users and enthusiasts eager to explore it, including Cheng Lei himself. That day, upon returning home from work, Cheng Lei, as usual, dined while browsing various Android forums, posting critiques and comparisons with MIUI, often concluding that MIUI outperformed many alternatives. He would even assist others with inquiries regarding MIUI, demonstrating a sense of community. After helping someone troubleshoot a post about MIUI's persistent reboot issue, he encountered a post by a user named Digital Old Pal, asserting that CXUI was the premier Android customization system, relegating others to mere afterthoughts. As a devoted Xiaomi fan, Cheng Lei could not contain his frustration and engaged in a spirited debate with the user. Ultimately, however, he found himself at a disadvantage, unable to shake off his annoyance. Cheng Lei followed the link provided by Digital Old Pal to the CXUI forum. To his surprise, he discovered a vibrant community, albeit filled primarily with positive reviews. Viewing these posts, he scoffed, thinking it was likely a product of a small workshop rather than a major corporation, and dismissed it as the work of attention-seeking amateurs. Yet, adhering to the principle of experience before judgment, he resolved to try out CXUI and return to challenge the forum user. What he encountered during this trial astonished him. The system was user-friendly, efficient, and remarkably smooth, providing an overall experience that can only be described as delightful. Despite his initial intentions to find faults, he was unable to uncover any, as the system was pristine and straightforward. It introduced novel features such as quick drop-down menus, caller ID displays, and 9-grid folders. Experiences that captivated him completely. An hour slipped by unnoticed as he immersed himself in CXUI, leaving him in awe of its capabilities. It was no wonder that the forum boasted such acclaim. After his experience with CXUI, when he compared it to other Android customization systems, he felt they belonged to a different era. This hour had truly broadened his horizons, transforming him from a Xiaomi fan into an admirer of CXUI. Forgoing his meal, he began to extol the virtues of CXUI on the forum, feeling it imperative that others discover this exceptional Android customization system. He then ventured into other Android forums, fervently posting about CXUI's remarkable performance, noting its improved fluidity and battery life, a truly commendable system. CXUI stood as a paragon of the industry, blending practicality with innovation, offering an unparalleled experience. It was nothing short of a masterstroke, with all who had used it singing its praises. This was merely a glimpse of the phenomenon. Countless individuals like Cheng Lei were drawn to CXUI, and after their own experiences, they too became fervent advocates. At the Xiaomi headquarters, Lei Jun remarked to Huang Jiangji, "Lately, I've noticed a surge of posts about CXUI on our MUI forum. It is also an Android customization system. Out of curiosity, I downloaded the CXUI ROM. And after experiencing it, I believe their system is significantly more user-friendly than ours." Huang Jiangji, who had been focused on updating MUI, looked up in surprise. "Are you suggesting there is an Android system superior to my MUI?" Lei, today is not April Fool's Day, and this jest is hardly amusing. Recognizing Huang Jiangji's skepticism, Lei Jun replied, "I understand your disbelief, but if you try it, you'll see." He handed over his phone for Huang to test. After a brief period, Huang Jiangji, astonished, turned to Lei Jun and exclaimed, "This system truly surpasses our MUI. Following my experience with CXUI, I see considerable room for improvement in our own system. Though MUI is still commendable." Lei Jun, in agreement, suggested, "Do you think we could glean some insights from their strengths for our next update?" Huang Jiangji contemplated this without giving a direct answer, furrowing his brow as he considered, "I will endeavor to keep track of it." "Good, I trust you will." Chapter 11. The development of smart devices. As October progressed, Huaixing technology had successfully emerged from its previous slump. Although overall phone sales remained lower than before, profits were on the rise. In September, the total sales of the Huaixing series reached 28,000 units, while the Jiku phone and OEM devices collectively exceeded 30,000 units. At first glance, the sales figures appeared comparable to August. However, a closer examination revealed that the primary decline stemmed from the OEM segment. In contrast, Jiku's sales had actually seen a significant increase, comprising a substantial portion of the total. To understand the reality of OEM smartphone production, it often yields meager profits, akin to a tasteless existence that one would not regret discarding. Jiang Huaixing recalled that upon his arrival in this world, Huaixing technology was teetering on the brink of financial loss. However, under his stewardship and after more than 3 months of relentless effort, the company is not merely surviving but has promising prospects ahead. As he pondered this, he could not help but hum softly to himself. The R&D team, led by Zhou Ku, had already made considerable progress, developing a prototype of the smartphone. Their current focus was on further compressing its design to achieve a slimmer profile. Jiang had explicitly mandated that, while it may not rival the iPhone 4, the device must remain under 10 millimeters in thickness. A slimmer phone conveys a sense of elegance and sophistication, instantly captivating the eye and suggesting a high value. Conversely, carrying a device resembling a brick, regardless of its aesthetic appeal, diminishes its perceived quality. The release of the iPhone 4, with its mere 9.3 millimeters in thickness, had raised the bar significantly. Had Jiang arrived even a year earlier, he would not have insisted on such stringent measurements, as the upcoming models from major brands like Xiaomi and Meizu were set to exceed 11 millimeters in thickness. However, now in 2010, with the iPhone 4 as a shining example, Jiang, a system-equipped transmigrator, was unwilling to lag behind. As a result, Zhou and his team began an intense work schedule, tirelessly brainstorming ways to achieve this ambitious goal. Each millimeter shaved off the phone's thickness demanded immense time and energy, balancing heat dissipation and power consumption among myriad considerations. The pressure amplified as the software team produced remarkable results. Yet, under this strain, Zhou and his colleagues found themselves invigorated, often reflecting on their resilience in the face of adversity. As the adage suggests, greater pressure begets greater motivation. Jiang occasionally visited the R&D department, and each time, the team was animated and energized, despite the dark circles under their eyes. Witnessing their determination left him in awe of the formidable prowess of the Succubus attribute. The pace of smartphone development exceeded Jiang's expectations. Although he lacked technical expertise, he was acutely aware of the extensive resources major international brands invested in smartphone technology. CXUI Technology's contributions, while significant, still paled in comparison. Nonetheless, it had only been 4 months since the inception of their smartphone project. The software team had achieved remarkable milestones, and the hardware design had begun to take shape. The thinner the device, the more intricate the challenges became. For instance, achieving a thickness of under 10 millimeters often compromised heat dissipation or battery life. Resolving the equilibrium between these factors proved to be a formidable task. On one occasion, Jiang overheard discussions regarding the overall hardware design. Although he recognized each term, the concepts intertwined like a familiar stranger, eluding his comprehension, prompting him to discreetly withdraw. It became clear to him that his role was to set expectations while the technical details were best managed through the system's support. Later, he visited the software team, where he engaged in discussions about the essential built-in apps for the smartphone. The App Store was a vital revenue channel, with nearly all domestic smartphone manufacturers establishing their branded marketplaces. Typically, users relied on these proprietary app stores to download applications, generating profits through developer fees and revenue-sharing models. For instance, the mainstream revenue-sharing ratios in domestic platforms like Huawei's app market ranged from 18 to 25, while Xiaomi stores offered 30, with gaming apps typically split 50-50. This is why Jiang placed such emphasis on the integration of the App Store within the smartphone. Despite his limited prior knowledge of the mobile industry, Jiang understood that many domestic brands engaged in fierce competition, resulting in the demise of numerous manufacturers. At the time of his arrival, only those with unique capabilities remained. Without the system's assistance, he might have already sold the company and settled into a life of complacency. However, equipped with the system, he felt compelled to strive for excellence. Even with merely the Succubus attribute, he was confident in his ability to compete with the likes of Apple. Brand identity was paramount in this contest. A product associated with a counterfeit label would inherently struggle for consumer trust, while breakthroughs in technology could eventually elevate a brand. Such advancements would inevitably take time. Thus, Jiang prioritized establishing the Huaixing brand. This would create a distinctive starting point for CXUI Technology's inaugural smartphone, allowing it to enter the mid-range market. Chapter 12. Division Jiang placed immense importance on the Huaixing brand, even rejecting offers from offline distributors to stock their products. While offline channels remained crucial, he was resolute in his commitment to the Huaixing brand, opting to stabilize relationships through the production of CXUI smartphones. With Huaixing, CXUI Technology could confidently penetrate the mid-range smartphone sector. Absent this brand, initial positioning would have likely relegated them to the budget segment. It is essential to understand that simply possessing superior hardware or an advanced operating system does not guarantee entry into the high-end market. Without significant market recognition, consumers are unlikely to invest in a product. However, this is merely the present situation. In a few years, as CXUI Technology accumulates resources and experience, entering the high-end market will become considerably easier. The future is bright, and time is on the side of Jiang and CXUI Technology. As the company develops innovative technologies, it will ascend to the pinnacle of global smartphone brands. Naturally, the Huaixing brand will not be utilized for high-end products. Initial perceptions are pivotal, as they serve as reference points for subsequent evaluations. For instance, if consumers initially associate Xiaomi with budget-friendly devices, even premium offerings may be judged against that established perception. As such, the first smartphone from Huaixing Technology will likely find its footing in the mid-range market, while future high-end products will bear the Huaixing name. Certainly, low-end smartphones are essential, and we shall utilize JIKE for this purpose. Consequently, the technology phased out by Huaixing will be transferred to Huaixing, and the technology discarded by Huaixing will be adopted by JIKE. With this in mind, Jiang Huaixing plans to divide Huaixing Technology into 4 distinct companies: Huaixing Technology Company Limited, Huaixing Technology Company Limited, JIKE Electronics Company Limited, and Xinghe Holdings Company Limited. This restructuring aims to establish unique brand positioning and operations for each entity. Most importantly, Jiang Huaixing seeks to enhance the company's governance and facilitate future management. Without such measures, the business could become chaotic, with departments overlapping, which may not pose an issue in the early stages, but could lead to excessive complexity as each brand grows. Thus, it is prudent to separate them now while it is still early, allowing for smoother operations. Since Jiang Huaixing currently holds 100% equity in Huaixing Technology, he does not require anyone else's approval for these decisions. Acknowledging that he cannot manage this alone, he intends to enlist a professional team to assist in this endeavor. Once the team arrives at Huaixing, Jiang Huaixing instructs the receptionist to escort them to the meeting room. Upon entering, he encounters a middle-aged man of average build, dressed in a black suit, with a refined appearance, gold-rimmed glasses, and a welcoming smile. "Hello, Mr. Jiang. I am Qian Qian, the general manager of Xinghe Consulting Company Limited." Upon Jiang Huaixing's entrance, the man stands, extending his right hand in greeting. Jiang Huaixing reciprocates, saying, "Hello, Mr. Qian." After their introductions, they take their seats, and Qian Qian begins to outline the plan they have devised for Huaixing Technology Company Limited. "Mr. Jiang, based on your vision, we understand your intent. You wish to separate Huaixing Technology into 3 distinct brands, segment the user base, and coordinate resources to achieve risk mitigation and maximize benefits through independent management." Jiang Huaixing nods in agreement, realizing that this aligns with his original thoughts. Seeing Jiang Huaixing's approval, Qian Qian continues, "Next, let me explain our proposed plan. First, we suggest a shareholding structure where you establish a parent company, holding 100 of its shares. This parent company will oversee 3 wholly owned subsidiaries, each corresponding to one of the 3 major brands, with you serving as the legal representative or appointing senior executives for the subsidiaries. Each subsidiary will operate with independent financial accounting, with all profits directed to the parent company, granting you, as the founder, 100% entitlement to the earnings. In terms of management, each brand will operate independently, appointing its own general manager to handle daily decisions, while you retain final approval authority. The parent company will build the supply chain and R&D infrastructure, with core technology patents held by the parent and licensed to the subsidiaries to avoid redundant resource investment. After listening to Qian Qian's proposal, Jiang Huaixing nods in satisfaction. "I am pleased with your plan and look forward to a fruitful collaboration." In response, Qian Qian beams, "Mr. Jiang, we will not disappoint you." After finalizing the specific details, they proceed to sign the contract. Over the next few days, Qian Qian brings his team to understand the specifics of Huaixing Technology and begins preparations for the company split. Within a week, they assist Jiang Huaixing in completing the division of the company, a speed that astonishes Qian Qian and his team, who had not anticipated such efficiency from Huaixing Technology. The newly established JIKE Electronics Company Limited now carries forward the previous business of Huaixing Technology, while Huaixing and Huaixing Technologies focus on various aspects of smartphone operations. The business of Huaixing smartphones continues under the branding of JIKE Electronics. Currently, Jiang Huaixing serves as the general manager of all 3 subsidiaries, primarily because, despite the separation into 3 brands, the operations remain fundamentally the same. Therefore, Jiang Huaixing is managing all 3 companies. However, he is now in the process of selecting a general manager for Huaixing Technology, considering Li Junwei as a potential candidate. As he has impressed Jiang Huaixing during this period, Jiang Huaixing will continue to personally oversee Huaixing Technology. Time swiftly passes, and October comes to a close. The image of Huaixing Mobile as a niche brand has been firmly established, particularly among students, who are drawn to its aesthetic appeal and cost-effectiveness, making it the preferred choice for those unable to afford high-end smartphones. On this day, Jiang Huaixing is reviewing the financial report for October when a sudden, urgent knock interrupts him. Come in. He is greeted by an excited Zhou Ku, who strides into the room. Mr. Jiang, I have wonderful news. Oh, do share. Our smartphone is complete. Chapter 13. The first smartphone originally. Jiang Huaixing maintained a calm demeanor, but upon hearing Zhou Ku's announcement, he momentarily froze before erupting in elation. Are you saying our smartphone is finished? Zhou Ku nods. Yes, Mr. Jiang. We have assembled the prototype and conducted preliminary tests, finding no issues thus far. Quick, take me to see it. Jiang Huaixing exclaims, nearly stumbling over his words in excitement. He hurries alongside Zhou Ku towards the R&D department, his pace quickening with anticipation gleaming in his eyes, eager to reach the R&D area. In a short time, they arrive at the department, where Jiang Huaixing sees the team gathered. He greets them. It appears everyone is quite interested in our smartphone. The team responds with smiles and greetings. Parting to clear a path for him, Jiang Huaixing makes his way to the smartphone, which lies quietly on a table. He picks it up for a closer inspection, exclaiming, "Look at this, it's stunning. Mr. Jiang, this is our first self-developed smartphone, and its model number is X001, Zhou Ku explains. The device features a white casing, a mirror-finished front, and a polished plastic back, ensuring both aesthetic appeal and a comfortable grip. It is equipped with a 4.0-inch LCD touchscreen, boasting a resolution of 854 by 480 pixels. Below the screen are 3 functional touch buttons, the central home button, the return key on the right, and the menu button on the left, all illuminated. The left side features volume controls, while the right houses the power button. At the bottom center is the data and charging port, flanked by a 3.5mm headphone jack and dual independent speakers. The front-facing camera is situated at the top center of the screen, while the rear camera is located at the upper back, accompanied by an LED flash. The Huaixing logo, reminiscent of a twinkling star, adorns the lower back. As Zhou Ku elaborates on the features, Jiang Huaixing examines the phone intently. Truthfully, this device bears some resemblance to a futuristic Xiaomi model. The overall feel of the phone in hand is quite satisfactory. Initially, Jiang Huaixing envisioned a unibody metal design. However, due to the high manufacturing costs and challenges in weight management, he opted for a polished plastic casing instead. Regrettably, the final thickness of the device rests at 10mm, failing to meet the goal of keeping it under 10mm. In pursuit of launching the smartphone within this year, compromise became an inevitable necessity. Otherwise, with the impending release of the Meizu M9 and the Xiaomi Mi 1 next year, the competitive landscape for their own smartphone would grow increasingly daunting. Contemplating this, Jiang Huaixing sighed internally. Ultimately, time was too short to expedite the launch of this smartphone. Jiang Huaixing had commenced seeking collaboration with key suppliers of essential core components as early as September. Furthermore, the authorization of various patented technologies required multiple rounds of negotiations for each phase. Some core components of the phone were virtually unattainable. Initially, they had planned to utilize Qualcomm's Snapdragon MSM 8260, but it was simply unavailable, forcing them to reluctantly opt for the Snapdragon MSM 8255 instead. Certain manufacturers, perceiving Huaixing as a small brand with limited purchase volume, would only offer their products at a premium. Their response was blunt: the brand lacked recognition. The orders were too minuscule, and thus, they were merely regarded as a minor client, with no hope of favorable pricing. Had it not been for the connections forged by the former Qinxing technology, Huaixing technology would have encountered even more challenges. Fortunately, Huaixing's predecessor, Qinxing Technology, was a seasoned mobile manufacturer, granting them a modicum of strength within the supply chain. Otherwise, for any other startup attempting to manufacture smartphones, establishing a supply chain would require at least 1.5 years of negotiation, assuming the founder possessed exceptional capabilities. After gaining these insights, Jiang Huaixing promptly applied for all available patents, with the majority pertaining to the design of the phone, securing numerous future designs. The expenses incurred solely for patent applications were considerable, further solidifying his resolve to develop proprietary technology and support domestic suppliers. Of course, these were matters for the future. After reviewing the phone's exterior, Jiang Huaixing proceeded to power it on. Observing him do so, Zhou Ku continued to explain, "We have established a guided usage process for every user initiating the device for the first time." Subsequently, Jiang Huaixing explored the various functions of the phone. An hour slipped by unnoticed. Upon completion of the experience, Jiang Huaixing was, to be honest, quite satisfied overall. This smartphone is exceptionally well executed and has far exceeded my expectations. Frankly, I am genuinely astonished. You managed to accomplish this from inception to completion in just 5 months. Achieving such a feat in such a short time frame is truly commendable. The attendees were similarly taken aback, particularly Zhang Yuan and Zhou Ku, who had previously participated in smartphone development at Meizu. That process had been fraught with challenges. To be candid, they had joined Qinxing primarily lured by the promise of high salaries, never anticipating such a swift success in development. Initially, they had deemed the owner somewhat foolish, with excessive funds and an obstinate desire to pursue smartphone research. Given the circumstances at Qinxing Technology, it seemed inevitable that they would falter before completing development and subsequently face bankruptcy. Had Jiang Huaixing not traversed through time, Qinxing Technology would likely have indeed faced insolvency. However, Zhou Ku and Zhang Yuan did not foresee that the smartphone development process would unfold so smoothly, feeling it was a stark contrast to their experiences at Meizu. In truth, this phone did not fully align with Jiang Huaixing's expectations, particularly regarding its thickness. However, one must acknowledge that thoughts and words do not always coincide. As it stands, this smartphone has no real competitors aside from the Apple IV. Even though the Apple IV excels in hardware, it cannot rival this device in terms of software. Chapter 14. Preparations. Jiang Huaixing applauded. Thank you all for your hard work. Dinner is approaching, and I will treat everyone to a meal to celebrate your efforts. Additionally, the project bonuses will be quite generous. Upon hearing Jiang Huaixing's words, the crowd erupted in cheers. The following day, Jiang Huaixing arrived at the company early and summoned all senior executives to the conference room. Once everyone was gathered, Jiang Huaixing raised the smartphone in his hand. This is the smartphone developed by our R&D department after 5 months of tireless effort, designated as X001. Everyone, please give it a try. With that, he handed the prototype to the attendees. The first to experience it was Li Junwei, the general manager of JIC Electronics. Wow, this phone is stunning. Moreover, it operates more smoothly than my current smartphone. The subsequent feedback was overwhelmingly positive. After Li Jianjun from the production department tested the device, he remarked, while this phone is indeed user-friendly, its production cost is substantial. Jiang Huaixing acknowledged Li Jianjun's observation, stating, indeed, this is also the purpose of today's meeting. Pricing not only impacts our profit margins, but is also crucial for brand positioning. Therefore, we need to deliberate on the pricing strategy for this smartphone. Manager Li, considering your previous market research on smartphones, how do you suggest we set the price? Jiang Huaixing then turned his gaze toward Li Junwei. Li Junwei replied, since our Baixing phone is positioned in the international mid-range market, there are relatively few comparable domestic models. The most pertinent reference is the Meizu M8's pricing. When the Meizu M8 launched last year, the 8GB version was priced at 2,380 yuan, and the 16GB version at 2,880 yuan. However, I believe the post-price adjustment in May offers more valuable insights, as both versions saw a price reduction of 400 yuan. Our smartphone surpasses the M8 in both hardware and software, so considering our costs, I propose we price it slightly higher. For instance, we could set the 16GB version at 2,799 yuan and the 32GB version at 3,299 yuan. I believe this pricing is reasonable. A collective gasp filled the room as attendees absorbed the proposed pricing. Zhang Bo, the sales manager, questioned, isn't that price a bit steep? Our Baixing brand is still relatively unknown. I fear that such a high price may hinder market acceptance. Li Jianjun from the production department responded, I actually think this price is quite reasonable. We cannot solely consider hardware costs. R&D expenses and patent fees must also be factored in, or we risk incurring losses. Zhang Yuan from the R&D department concurred. Indeed, I too find this pricing to be reasonable. After all, the M8's price has remained unchanged since its release last year. Even in the case of the 16GB versions, our smartphone outperforms it in every aspect. Moreover, prior to the launch of their smartphone, Meizu's recognition was primarily among younger demographics and tech enthusiasts, with limited general awareness. Although Baixing may be lesser known, the CXUI brand is quite prominent, boasting over 300,000 active users on the CXUI forum and exceeding 500,000 downloads. With CXUI's popularity, the anticipation surrounding our launch will be comparable to Meizu's, if not greater. especially considering the enthusiasm from users who have experienced CXUI. After a thorough discussion, Jiang Huaixing ultimately decided to adopt Li Jianhui's pricing proposal. Although some had suggested directly competing with the Apple IV, Jiang Huaixing promptly dismissed this notion. Despite the smartphone not being significantly inferior, it excelled in its operating system. However, at present, people in the country perceive foreign products through a lens of bias, believing them to be superior to domestic offerings. Thus, even though this smartphone is quite commendable, it cannot be compared with Apple. Nevertheless, once the White Star smartphone has garnered sufficient reputation among the populace, the launch of the Qingxing model will undoubtedly allow it to compete head-to-head with Apple. Now that we have resolved the pricing issue, it is time to address the naming of our first smartphone. Zhou Keita suggested naming it White Star X1, opting for simplicity. The naming process did not require much deliberation, and Zhou Keita's proposal was promptly adopted. Following this, Jiang Huaixing and the others began to discuss how to promote the White Star X1. After thoroughly addressing all details, everyone returned to their respective tasks. Once the meeting concluded, Jiang Huaixing isolated himself in his office, instructing his assistant Suyin not to let anyone disturb him. He drew the curtains, casting the room into darkness, and reclined in his office chair. To the casual observer, Jiang Huaixing appeared relaxed, but internally, his mind was racing. The cause of his turmoil was the lack of funds. The company's accounts were nearly depleted, with only enough left to cover employee salaries. Jiang Huaixing had already mortgaged all the factory's fixed assets to the bank. After paying the deposit for the core components of the smartphone, the remaining funds were scant. To secure the advertising budget and cover upfront costs, Jiang Huaixing had borrowed money under the name of the parent company, Xinghe Holdings, for White Star Technology. Truth be told, aside from his personal real estate, he had exhausted every available resource. Even though he held confidence in the White Star X1, Jiang Huaixing could not afford to leave himself without an escape route. Presently, however, he faced the most significant crisis since his arrival in this world. While he had a backup plan, the company did not. In an effort to recall the grandiose launch events of industry tycoons from his past life, Jiang Huaixing knew that the launch conference was scheduled for December 1st, with an estimated stock of approximately 150,000 units. A successful launch event could decisively influence a new product's market positioning, brand perception, and even alter the fate of small to mid-sized manufacturers. Thus, he diligently reflected on the successful launch events he had witnessed, snippets flashing through his mind. Although the finer details eluded him, certain iconic moments remained vividly imprinted. Chapter 15. The warm-up. As Jiang Huaixing's mind raced with memories of those iconic moments, he pondered how to define a successful launch event. Firstly, it must create an atmosphere that builds anticipation among the audience, culminating in collective excitement at its peak. Secondly, the product's capabilities must be robust, which goes without saying. Finally, it should stimulate the audience's desire to purchase. Time slipped by gradually. With his eyes tightly shut in the dimly lit office, Jiang Huaixing leaned back in his chair, lost in thought. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, sat up, and began typing on his computer, crafting the launch event proposal. His fingers danced across the keyboard, the sound resembling a downpour, a continuous symphony of clicks. After approximately an hour and a half, Jiang Huaixing reviewed the rough framework of the proposal, nodding in satisfaction before continuing to refine its contents. At that moment, he entered a state of flow, completely absorbed in his writing, losing all sense of time. Finally, Jiang Huaixing completed the comprehensive proposal for the launch event. Stretching his limbs, he reread the document in disbelief, astonished that he had produced such work. One hand rested on his chest while the other stroked his chin. When did I become this capable? Why hadn't I noticed it before? Suddenly, he recalled his alluring attribute. Could it be that the effects of this attribute extend beyond what I initially thought? Jiang Huaixing seemed to have uncovered a flaw in his previous reasoning. No wonder he felt more adept since arriving here. He initially attributed it to the original host, but realized it was due to his own system. He had thought this attribute only enhanced his charm. With this revelation, he chuckled to himself, feeling more elated than if he had won 5 million. Now it was November 11th, with just 19 days until the launch event. The factory was tirelessly producing the White Star X1, halting all production of other feature phones to focus entirely on this model. Meanwhile, Jiang Huaixing and his colleagues were actively meeting with various software suppliers to discuss collaboration. Jiang Huaixing personally handled the crucial negotiations, while less significant matters were delegated to Li Junhui. Collaborations with software suppliers proceeded smoothly, as most were eager to partner. A few were less welcoming, but they were largely unfamiliar software companies. Thus, Jiang Huaixing was unyielding. If they were unwilling to join their mobile marketplace, he reciprocated their reluctance. During this period, Jiang Huaixing spent most of his time on the road, traveling by plane or train. One day, after concluding a collaboration meeting with a software supplier, he hurriedly boarded a flight to the capital. By the time Jiang Huaixing and his team arrived in the city, it was already past midnight, and they rushed to their hotel for some rest, as they had a meeting scheduled with a salesperson from Jingxi the following day. Jiang Huaixing intended to sell the White Star X1 through online retail on e-commerce platforms. With the meeting set for 10 a.m., he could afford to sleep in, enjoying the most restful night he had had in recent memory. After freshening up, he proceeded to Jingxi to discuss collaboration. The Jingxi representatives expressed considerable interest in the White Star X1, given the impressive sales of the previous models, White Star 1 and 2. Consequently, both parties were inclined to collaborate, and an agreement was swiftly reached. After finalizing the partnership with Jingxi, Jiang Huaixing immediately set off for Hangzhou to negotiate with Taobao. As the launch date approached, his responsibilities multiplied. Once agreements with major e-commerce platforms were secured, Jiang Huaixing returned to the company. Upon his arrival, Assistant Su Yun informed him that the network access license for the White Star X1 had been obtained. Unlike the lengthy process in his previous life, this world required only 15 business days for approval, resulting in a swift acquisition of the license. Moreover, promotional materials had been completed. It was now November 19th. Jiang Huaixing simultaneously posted a teaser on Weibo and the CXUI forum. The launch event for the White Star X1 smartphone will take place on December 1st at 7 p.m. Let this world be transformed by you. Beneath the text was a poster featuring the silhouette of a smartphone, only partially revealing its front, with dim lighting that suggested an air of mystery. Jiang Huaixing also invested in having prominent influencers share the announcement to maximize visibility. However, the highest buzz was generated within the tech community, as many users who had experienced CXUI smartphones eagerly anticipated the opportunity to try the White Star X1. After all, if CXUI was already so impressive, how could the White Star X1, equipped with it, fall short? Other mobile phone manufacturers have also taken notice of the White Star X1, as invitations were extended to them, including notable figures such as Huang Zhang from Meizu and Lei Jun from Xiaomi. Most domestic peers had never heard of White Star, but they were familiar with CXUI, which has gained significant recognition in the digital realm. Particularly, Huang Zhang of Meizu was taken aback and amused upon receiving the invitation, especially after learning that CXUI was developed by Talent Post from Meizu. The audacity of inviting him to witness the launch of a phone developed by someone he had lost to was striking, given the proximity of the two companies. Huang Zhang had certainly heard of White Star. Similarly, Lei Jun from Xiaomi was keenly interested in the White Star X1, having followed CXUI from its inception. CXUI has garnered more favor among mobile enthusiasts than MIUI, and his intention was to observe the event in hopes of gleaning some insights. As for the international giants, they disregarded White Star entirely, as their competition was exclusively with one another, leaving no time for such trivial matters. Especially Apple, under the leadership of Steve Jobs, has emerged as the most disruptive force in the mobile market. Following the launch of the iPhone 4, these international giants found themselves overwhelmed, with little time to focus on lesser entities. Chapter 16. Discussing collaboration after a long-awaited return home. Jiang Huaixing felt rejuvenated upon waking this morning. After a simple breakfast and dressing up, he prepared to head to the office. Upon arrival, his assistant Su Yun promptly presented him with a stack of documents requiring his attention. After addressing these matters, the morning passed swiftly, and post-lunch, Jiang Huaixing set off once again. This destination was not far, as both parties had nearly finalized their collaboration discussions. The purpose of this visit was merely for the two company leaders to meet and sign the contract. Typically, Jiang Huaixing attended primarily to reinforce goodwill, as the details had already been negotiated by their respective sales teams. After all, having Jiang Huaixing personally attend every collaboration would be inefficient. Thus, there were instances when he would visit several locations in a single day. As time passed amidst his busy schedule, November 25th approached, with only 5 days remaining until the launch event. Upon returning to the office, Jiang Huaixing had barely settled in when the newly appointed marketing manager, Jiang Tian, approached him. "General Jiang, we have finalized the list of attendees for the White Star X1 launch. Please review it." Jiang Huaixing was pleasantly surprised to see the names listed, particularly noting that Ma Huateng from Tencent would be in attendance, along with Huang Zhang and Lei Jun. He had not anticipated such a turnout from rival manufacturers, likely spurred by the intrigue surrounding CXUI. After all, White Star was relatively unknown and lacked other compelling draws. Surely, it cannot be attributed to the sales of the White Star 1 and 2, he mused, as their total sales in October barely exceeded 30,000 units. Hardly significant in their eyes, being merely low-end feature phones. For them, it was akin to an ant. The true reason for their attendance might stem from a burgeoning interest in CXUI, eager to witness the White Star X1 firsthand. Jiang Huaixing found it perplexing that Tencent would be interested, perhaps a spontaneous decision to attend the launch. Regardless, having such a prominent figure at the event was undoubtedly a boon. "We must ensure their seating arrangements are flawless. There must be no errors," he instructed after reviewing the list. "Moreover, we need to enhance security and deploy additional personnel. This aspect is vital. We will also have numerous invitees from the CXUI forum, necessitating strict checks for entry credentials." To his surprise, Jiang Huaixing discovered a considerable interest among mobile enthusiasts in the White Star X1 due to CXUI. Initially, he was concerned about filling the seats and even contemplated sending a few employees to fill the audience. However, once he shared the registration link in the CXUI forum, the response was overwhelming, with the available spots filling rapidly. "I understand, General Jiang." Jiang Long nodded and continued. "We have already coordinated with the hotel regarding the event venue, which they will prepare in advance. As for the media, we have invited around 50 outlets, both online and offline, with whom we have previously collaborated. Indeed, we must extend proper hospitality to the media and ensure the promotional budget is adequate. Given White Star Technology's current recognition, without financial incentives, why would anyone promote us, let alone speak favorably?" Jiang Huaixing emphasized. It was essential not only to allocate funds for the media, but also to provide incentives to the attending journalists. Only with sufficient financial backing would they be motivated to promote the event vigorously. Preparation for the promotional budget was already underway. "As long as the funds are in place, they'll be compelled to advocate for us," he noted. The promotional campaign had commenced, as the White Star X1 launch would be live-streamed online. As the days drew closer to the launch event, Jiang Huaixing focused on overseeing the overall strategy while refining and familiarizing himself with the previously prepared PowerPoint presentation. He also continued to polish his speech for the event. It is important to note that while many speakers at previous launch events appeared eloquent and articulate, they often relied on pre-prepared scripts, familiarizing themselves beforehand and resorting to teleprompters if necessary. Yet, the essence of their success lay in their storytelling ability, which ignited the audience's passion. After reviewing the speech and presentation once more, Jiang Huaixing proceeded to the e-commerce department. Following a thorough assessment, the overall sales process appeared to be in good order. He also discussed key considerations such as overselling and order locking. Satisfied that all matters were nearing resolution, Jiang Huaixing nodded in approval before departing. Currently, the CXUI forum has gathered over 1 million users, with more than 500,000 active participants. As the launch event for the White Star X1 approached, the number of discussions surrounding it continued to grow. Moreover, this month, CXUI released an international version, garnering attention from overseas users. Due to its user-compile capabilities, CXUI has spawned numerous variations, attracting more international fans. The rise of CXUI has also contributed to an increase in the number of customized Android systems abroad, much to the delight of the Android community. Subsequently, Jiang Huaixing inspected the inventory of mobile phones, conducting random checks on the devices. The quality of the inspected units was satisfactory, and the stock of 150,000 units was nearing completion. To be candid, Jiang Huaixing wished to prepare a larger inventory, but financial constraints hindered such ambitions. Additionally, White Star's production capacity had reached its limit. The 150,000 units were produced only through the workers' overtime efforts. While they had never previously manufactured such a large quantity in a month, the challenge was greater than before. However, the addition of a new production line and the support from Meizu had made this possible. In such circumstances, the task was flawlessly completed while ensuring quality. You may wonder why I didn't outsource the labor. The answer remains the same: lack of funds. Today is November 30th. With merely 1 day remaining until the launch event, Chapter 17. The eve of the launch conference with just one day left until the conference. Tomorrow holds immense significance for Jiang Huaixing, marking the most crucial day since his journey began. It is the day of the Huaixing X1's unveiling. This day will determine whether Jiang Huaixing's company can successfully transform, completing its genetic restructuring from a mere knockoff mobile manufacturer to a legitimate smart device creator. The transition aims to shift from a past focused on low-cost, rapid imitation to establishing a long-term vision, creating a comprehensive system for hardware research and development, software optimization, quality testing, and supply chain management. The stakes have never been higher. In anticipation of tomorrow, Jiang Huaixing arrived at the office early, poring over the PowerPoint presentation and speech notes. To be candid, he had never approached his studies with such seriousness in his previous life. However, the desire to minimize errors during the upcoming conference compelled him to diligently familiarize himself with the materials. The unveiling of Huaixing Technology's inaugural smartphone carries profound implications, as it will shape the future of Huaixing Technology and, by extension, all of Jiang Huaixing's enterprises. Should tomorrow's event falter, his only recourse would be to rely on rental income, gradually rebuilding his fortunes. Consequently, Jiang Huaixing mobilized all personnel, with the exception of the essential staff at Extreme Electronics. For the conference preparations, the absence of any staff at Huaixing Technology rendered it unnecessary to divert resources from there. After countless revisions of the speech at his computer, Jiang Huaixing stood up and stretched. Approaching the window, he gazed outside, realizing it was nearly noon. He opened the window, letting a warm breeze caress his face. The weather in Deep City during November remained pleasantly mild, neither too cold nor too warm, but just right. The sun slowly ascended to its zenith, casting its golden rays across the land, with shadows receding like a sculptor filling in the gaps with golden mortar. Observing the bustling figures below, it felt as though they were preparing for a grand battle. After lunch, Jiang Huaixing made his way to the hotel where the conference would take place, an international brand venue located in Nanshan, Deep City. Upon entering, he arrived at the independent banquet hall designated for the launch. As the heavy double doors slid open, a spacious, column-free area unfolded before him. The 6-meter-high dome allowed for unobstructed sightlines, accommodating approximately 700 to 800 guests. To ensure a less crowded atmosphere, they arranged for around 650 attendees, providing ample space between seats for a more dignified presentation. This hotel had hosted numerous large-scale business events, speeches, and technology launches, allowing them to handle every detail with remarkable poise and expertise. The meticulous arrangement of aisles and spacing between rows of chairs created an orderly environment. Alongside the hotel staff, Huaixing Technology's team assisted in familiarizing themselves with the setup to avoid any mishaps. The team remained busy until approximately 7 p.m., coinciding with the time of the conference. Jiang Huaixing and his preparation team began the final arrangements, including lighting setups, timing for screen displays, and microphone adjustments. Once everything was in place, they proceeded to rehearse. Each individual took their assigned positions, and Jiang Huaixing stood at the podium, gazing at the vacant seats below, envisioning them filled with an audience. As he read from the teleprompter, his expression remained stoic, his voice steady, synchronizing his gestures with the PowerPoint slides. The atmosphere felt rigid. However, the company employees watched in astonishment as their leader delivered a presentation unlike any they had encountered before. Upon concluding his address, spontaneous applause erupted from the audience. Jiang Huaixing smiled at their reaction. As he stepped down, people gravitated towards him, expressing their enthusiasm. President Jiang, after hearing your speech, I'm tempted to switch to a Huaixing X1. All right, everyone, let us focus on rehearsing your parts for tomorrow instead of gathering around me, he instructed. As the evening progressed, everyone practiced their segments, and by around 10:30 p.m., the rehearsal concluded smoothly. After exchanging farewells, the team departed, leaving Jiang Huaixing alone at the podium once more. He walked slowly past the rows of chairs, and though the distance was short, it felt as if he had traversed a great expanse. Arriving at the spot where he would speak tomorrow, he stared into the darkness ahead, devoid of audience members. Yet he lingered in contemplation. Reflecting on his previous life, he recalled the unremarkable 20-plus years he had lived as an orphan, growing up in an orphanage without the melodrama typical of television narratives. His life had been one of stability, leading to his admission to university through sheer determination. During his college years, he worked tirelessly to cover tuition and living expenses, graduating without significant emotional investment, as he had always been alone. However, tomorrow's launch would be different. The significance of the event weighed heavily upon him, representing not only the collective efforts of hundreds within the company, but also the very essence of its survival. It symbolized the profound impact Jiang Huaixing aimed to make on the world of smartphones. This realization brought forth an unprecedented pressure. He was determined not to fail. Having already endured too much in his past life, he yearned for success, aspiring to transcend the monotony of existence. Tomorrow could herald a new chapter in his life, and he wished to greet this seemingly altered world with a resounding proclamation from a traveler of another realm. Hello, this world, I have arrived. Chapter 18, Gathering for the Launch Event, December 1st. The launch conference is set to commence tonight at 7 p.m. in a male dormitory at Deep University. One student lay on his bed, exclaiming, "Hey, did you all know that the Huaixing X1 launch event is happening tonight at 7 p.m.? Huaixing. I know about it. My favorite blogger shared it on Weibo," replied another student, seated at his computer. "I saw their posters too. They look quite impressive. I bought a Huaixing one for my grandfather during the summer, and he seemed to like it. I've used it myself. It's quite functional and aesthetically pleasing. Isn't it?" At this point, the dormitory erupted into animated discussions. I read online that the event will be streamed live at 7 p.m. Since we have nothing else to do, let us tune in. In a certain company in Deep City, Zhang Zhe, a white-collar worker, found himself in an elevator lamenting to a colleague about his malfunctioning phone. "My phone is broken again. This time, I'm planning to switch to a smartphone." His colleague responded, "You could consider getting the Apple 4. I've heard it's quite impressive." Zhang Zhe sighed, "But the Apple phone is prohibitively expensive. The 16 gigabytes version costs 4,999 yuan, and the 32 gigabytes version is priced at 5,999 yuan, nearly equivalent to my entire monthly salary. Perhaps you should explore other brands," suggested his colleague. "We have others in the office who have purchased different brands of smartphones. I've tried them, and they simply don't compare to the Apple 4. "That's true." His colleague pondered for a moment before exclaiming, "Isn't there a new phone being released today? You should check it out." Zhang Zhu inquired, "Which brand is it?" "Huaixing." "A new brand," his colleague replied. "Really? A new brand? Is it reliable?" Zhang Zhu questioned. "I think it should be fine. I've used their CXUI operating system, and it was quite user-friendly." As he spoke, the colleague pulled out his phone for Zhang Zhu to try. After experiencing it, Zhang Zhu remarked, "This system is impressive. It's clean and easy to navigate." "Indeed. When is their phone launching?" "I'll make sure to check it out," Zhang Zhu asked. "I remember they have a launch event at 7 this evening, and it will be live-streamed. You can find the link on Weibo." "Perfect. I have no plans for tonight. I'll definitely tune in." On the CXUI forum, a user named Qing Tang Xiao by Kai excitedly announced, "Brothers, the Huaixing X1 is set to be launched at 7 tonight. I'm quite thrilled." Another user, Ma La Xiao Long Xia, chimed in, "Yes. I've been waiting for this day for a long time." Nioma Benma added, "I've been looking to upgrade my phone. I'll buy the Huaixing X1 as soon as it's available. I want to be the boss." Interjected, "If you're getting a new phone, what will happen to your old one?" Nioma Benma replied, "The old one? Naturally, it will be put away in the cabinet." "I want to be the boss," responded. "I feel like that answer is a bit off. It doesn't seem quite right. Perhaps you should respond again." "Firepot must eat red soup." Agreed. "I feel the same way." "Zhongzi must eat sweet." Echoed. "I agree." "Zhongzi only salty." Added. "I also agree." "I love spicy strips." Proclaimed. "I completely agree." Nioma Benma, slightly puzzled, remarked, "What is going on? Aren't we discussing the Huaixing X1 launch tonight?" "I love eating stir-fried meat with noodles." Affirmed. "Exactly. I also concur." At this moment, many were actively discussing the Huaixing X1 launch event, buoyed by Huaixing Technology's aggressive marketing on various social media platforms. As the clock approached 6 o'clock, the event had drawn considerable attention. The guest list included not only competitors, but also representatives from Jingxi and Taobao, as well as various hardware suppliers. Jiang Huaixing had even invited the 3 major telecommunications operators, who, due to his connections, sent a few representatives to attend. Additionally, several top venture capital firms were in attendance, as Jiang Huaixing was in dire need of funding. If the Huaixing X1 were to succeed, he could not afford to be without the means to purchase hardware. Anticipating a modest turnout, Jiang Huaixing was pleasantly surprised by the presence of several prominent investors. With less than 30 minutes to go before the launch, the banquet hall was nearly filled. The first 2 rows were reserved for distinguished guests, many of whom had already taken their seats, engaged in conversation. Meanwhile, Meizhu Huangzhang had just finished discussing matters concerning the M9 with his subordinates when he turned to his computer to watch the live stream of the Baixing X1 launch. He wasn't alone. Many industry peers, including those from CXUI and Guodaying, were also tuning in. Other invited guests exchanged pleasantries in their seats. One audience member nudged their companion, exclaiming, "Look, isn't that Ma from Tencent?" "Where?" "Let me see," the friend replied. "Wow, it really is him. There are quite a few big names from the mobile phone industry here. Baixing must have some serious clout to attract such attendees." As the countdown to the launch approached the final 10 minutes, Jiang Huaixing observed the packed audience and swallowed hard. He thought, so many people. Admittedly, he had never experienced such scrutiny before, and to say he wasn't nervous would be untrue. After all, it was akin to a young bride embarking on her wedding day, his first time in the spotlight. Taking a moment to drink water and steady his nerves, Jiang Huaixing instructed Su Yun at the back, "Notify everyone that we have 5 minutes until we begin. Prepare to start." As the minutes ticked by, the moment of truth drew near. "Begin," he declared, inhaling deeply before exhaling and stepping onto the stage, where cameras began to roll. Chapter 19. The launch event at precisely 7 p.m. on December 1st, 2010, the Baixing X1 smartphone launch commenced. As the lights dimmed in the banquet hall, the chatter of the audience gradually subsided, leaving an expectant silence as all eyes turned toward the LED screen on the podium. A young man clad in a black suit was seen striding confidently forward on the screen. Suddenly, those near the podium appeared on the screen as well. The prominent figures in the front row, accustomed to such occasions, smiled and waved upon seeing themselves. As the young man continued to advance, the camera angle shifted, capturing him from a distance until it focused on him at the center of the stage. Dressed in a white shirt beneath a black casual jacket with black trousers and white sneakers, he stood tall and poised, exuding an air of confidence. His tousled hair and striking features, coupled with bright, penetrating eyes, commanded attention. Standing at the podium with a warm smile, he radiated an inviting charm that drew the audience's gaze. As the crowd took in his appearance, their collective first impression was unanimous. Strikingly handsome, undeniably so. The online comments flooded in. "Wow, he is incredibly handsome. This man is almost making my heart flutter. Is this the president of Baixing Technology? He is too good looking. Ladies, I'm smitten. Who has his contact information? Forget selling phones. I'll support you. Guys, I came to watch with my girlfriend. But now it's turned into her watching with me. His appearance is almost rivaling mine." Whether online or in person, discussions abound. This individual is Jiang Huaixing, who, under the gaze of the crowd, spoke with remarkable composure. "Hello everyone. Some of you may know me, while others may not. However, the majority of you are unfamiliar with me, so allow me to briefly introduce myself. My name is Jiang Huaixing, the CEO of Baixing Technology. As a man who studied civil engineering, I may belong to the realm of engineering, yet I confess my understanding of mobile phones is rather limited. Therefore, I prefer to let the product speak for itself, for rather than who I am, it is the quality of the product that truly captivates your interest. So, please direct your attention to the large screen." Jiang Huaixing merely mentioned his name and title, swiftly bypassing the customary opening remarks. As the audience was far more intrigued by the Baixing X1, most attendees had come solely for the unveiling of the Baixing X1. His succinctness immediately garnered their favor, both online and offline. Of course, there were various comments circulating online as well. "This person is not only handsome, but has a delightful voice. Ladies, I'm smitten. No, I just want to hear your introduction." As soon as Jiang Huaixing finished speaking, the screen began to play a meticulously crafted promotional video for the Baixing X1. Thus, the Baixing X1 made its debut before the audience, appearing as an industrial masterpiece, perhaps due to the filming techniques, the background music, or the effects of the camera filters. The promotional short, lasting a mere 45 seconds, was utterly captivating. As the video concluded, the auditorium erupted in applause. Upon witnessing the successful display of the promotional video, Jiang Huaixing returned to the center of the stage, asking, "Did you find it appealing?" "Absolutely stunning." The crowd responded enthusiastically. "I'm glad you found it pleasing. It validates the hard work we poured into creating this promotional piece." Jiang Huaixing smiled. "In fact, when I first saw this promotional video, I was equally amazed. Despite my background in civil engineering and my lack of knowledge in mobile phone manufacturing, my unfamiliarity enables me to better understand what the average consumer desires in a phone. First and foremost is communication. the most fundamental function of a phone that facilitates contact with others. Secondly, as a smartphone, it must possess an operating system that is not overly complex, ensuring ease of use for its users. Additionally, it should allow me to access information, keeping me informed about recent events. Furthermore, when it comes to entertainment, a smartphone must provide excellent visual effects, necessitating at least a large screen. Moreover, during outings, capturing moments with friends requires a clear camera, ideally with a front-facing lens. Lastly, the phone's design must be aesthetically pleasing and not overly bulky to avoid loss of face when taken out. I conveyed these requirements to our engineers, instructing them to design a phone according to my vision. I vividly remember our R&D manager's words. "Are you sure? Can we actually produce such a phone? We have nothing at our disposal and must start from scratch. Perhaps we should lower our expectations and create a phone with a smaller screen, a thicker body, and lesser performance." I firmly replied, "No, because I believe that only a phone meeting these criteria can truly be classified as a smartphone." Thus, under my unwavering insistence, our R&D department persevered through countless nights of dedication. After relentless effort, Huaixing proudly presents our masterpiece. At that moment, an image of the complete Huaixing X1 appeared on the screen, prompting an eruption of applause and cheers from the audience. Jiang Huaixing took the phone from his pocket and stated, "Behold, this is our Huaixing X1. Are you satisfied with its appearance?" Indeed, the audience responded in unison. Hearing their affirmation, Jiang Huaixing couldn't help but smile. Our Huaixing X1 is not only visually stunning, but also boasts formidable internal capabilities. It can be confidently proclaimed that, at present, our Huaixing X1 is a flawless smartphone. Of course, words alone are insufficient. Please take a look at the large screen. Chapter 20. The unveiling continues. I will now elaborate on the features of this remarkable device. The Huaixing X1 began to rotate 360 degrees on the large screen, showcasing its entirety to the audience. A quality smartphone must deliver a pleasing visual experience. To achieve this, the device must maintain a slender profile, and our Huaixing X1 measures a mere 10.4 millimeters in thickness. You may not grasp the significance of this at first, so I have prepared a comparative visual for a more intuitive understanding. The large screen displayed several of today's most popular smartphones, with their logos obscured, yet their identities recognizable. Jiang Huaixing employed a cutting-edge comparative presentation method. The Huaixing X1 is less than 1 millimeter thicker than the current leading smartphone, the iPhone 4. To achieve this slimness, our R&D team sacrificed countless nights and endured considerable stress. It is essential to recognize that reducing thickness by even 1 millimeter entails substantial financial investment and effort. Yet, we succeeded, symbolizing Huaixing's relentless pursuit of beauty in design. We proudly assert that within the price range of 3,500 yuan, the Huaixing X1 is the thinnest smartphone available. Why mention 3,500 yuan? Because currently, one can purchase an i9000 for 3,750 yuan, which has a mere 9 millimeters thickness. Naturally, few people focus on this detail. In addition, our phone features a 4.0-inch screen, larger by 0.5 inches than the iPhone 4's 3.5-inch display. To enhance aesthetics, we eliminated the physical buttons on the front, opting for capacitive touch buttons, covered by a seamless glass panel. This design choice creates a more harmonious appearance. Following this, he demonstrated the operation of the capacitive touch buttons. After extolling the phone's exterior, he proceeded to introduce its other specifications. Of course, when venturing outside, the primary concern is the phone's battery life. Our device is equipped with a 1930 mAh battery, approximately 36 larger than the iPhone 4's battery, and nearly 30 greater than the 1,500 mAh batteries found in other mainstream phones. We have also crafted a specialized energy-saving optimization plan. Our Huaixing X1 can achieve approximately 450 hours of standby time, 15 hours of continuous talk time, 45 hours of uninterrupted audio playback, and up to 6 hours of gaming on resource-intensive applications. Of course, after all this discussion, the performance benchmarks will provide a more tangible experience. With that, a team of staff members brought out several popular smartphones alongside the Huaixing X1 for a benchmarking test. Time flew by, and 5 minutes later, the results were displayed on the large screen, unequivocally establishing the Huaixing X1 as the top contender among the tested devices. This outcome elicited gasps of astonishment from the audience, with the online comments echoing similar sentiments of disbelief. Then Jiang Huaixing began to present a series of testing results from the mobile laboratory. As everyone observed, our Huaixing X1 has successfully withstood numerous tests, indicating that we possess not only exceptional performance, but also reassuring quality. This achievement is inherently tied to our comprehensive mobile architecture, which is a self-developed framework by our lab, aptly named the rock-solid architecture. Subsequently, a grand diagram of the Huaixing X1 architecture appeared on the large screen behind Jiang, accompanied by the phrase rock-solid emblazoned above. The special effects rendered the architecture impressively robust in the viewers' minds. Both the audience present and those watching via live stream could not help but marvel at this innovative launch format. The hardware introduction concluded, and the screen displayed the names of all hardware suppliers, including esteemed companies such as Gaotong, Soli, and Xiaopu, among dozens of others. Expressing gratitude for the substantial support from these suppliers, Jiang requested forgiveness for not acknowledging each one individually due to time constraints. Now, let us experience the Huaixing X1. With that, Jiang Huaixing retrieved the phone from his pocket. However, an unexpected incident occurred, whether due to a slippery grip or some other reason. The phone slipped from his hand and flew off. The Huaixing X1 landed on the podium and bounced twice. In an instant, the entire banquet hall fell silent. All eyes fixated on the device. A photographer zoomed in, ensuring it was vividly visible on the large screen. The audience's gaze then shifted back to Jiang Huaixing. If the phone were damaged, all his previous assertions would amount to nothing, and the event would be deemed a failure. Meanwhile, competitors watching the live stream erupted in laughter, while online viewers relished the unfolding drama, labeling it a significant mishap at the launch. Jiang Huaixing, however, maintained an air of calm as he picked up the fallen Huaixing X1. He gently blew off the dust and retrieved a handkerchief from his pocket to wipe it clean. The phone appeared as pristine as ever. The camera then focused on the Huaixing X1 in his hand. Jiang pressed and held the power button, and as the CXUI interface illuminated, the crowd erupted in applause. Jiang felt a wave of relief wash over him, although this was a self-staged performance. He had confidence in the Huaixing X1's quality, yet he was still anxious about potential mishaps. Once the phone successfully powered on, Jiang continued, at Huaixing Technology, we firmly believe that an exceptional smartphone should not require users to expend excessive time adapting to its operations. It should seamlessly guide users from the moment they power it on. He emphasized simplicity, smooth operation, and high flexibility as the quintessential goals of Huaixing Technology. The large screen behind him showcased a detailed demonstration, eliciting applause from the audience. However, the expressions of some competitors were far from pleasant. Witnessing Jiang's impressive display initially left them unsettled, and the sight of the Huaixing X1's resilience after its fall stirred a sense of discomfort in them. As the launch event approached its conclusion, it was evident that, in this era, mobile phone launches in the country were not uncommon. Yet none could rival Jiang Huaixing's distinctive approach. The aesthetic appeal and interactive mode of the Huaixing X1 rendered most domestic competitors virtually incomparable. Jiang, however, had no time to ponder the thoughts of his rivals. After demonstrating the multifaceted operations of the Huaixing X1, the audience responded with timely applause. When the clapping subsided, Jiang continued, a smartphone should not only be user-friendly, but also facilitate communication with others. Beyond stable calls, our messaging system operates with remarkable fluidity. To enhance typing convenience, we have developed a virtual keyboard that allows seamless switching between 9-key, 26-key, and handwriting modes. Of course, the most effective communication occurs face-to-face. Hence, to learn from our esteemed competitors, the Huaixing X1 also supports two-way video calls, akin to the Apple IV. With our 8-megapixel rear camera and 5-megapixel front camera, whether capturing photos, selfies, or engaging in video calls, the clarity of our images surpasses that of the Apple IV. Jiang spoke sincerely. Please do not dismiss us as merely riding on the coattails of larger brands. Although we are newcomers to smartphone manufacturing, we aspire to create something that makes the world a better place, even if just a little. This acknowledgement of industry giants is our homage to those who have crafted the finest devices. At this moment, the audience collectively paused, touched by Jiang's words. Online commentators expressed admiration, noting how impressive it was for a CEO to commend the prowess of others during his own launch event. Initially indifferent towards domestic smartphones, some found themselves intrigued by the Huaixing X1 due to Jiang's earnest demeanor. Meanwhile, competitors felt like novices in Jiang's presence, having been introduced to a refreshing perspective. The audacity to both capitalize on trends and pay homage was striking, leaving them reeling. Jiang continued, I am aware that Huaixing is a small company, and we may never surpass established brands. Nonetheless, we persistently strive to prove that the challenging path we tread does not imply it is the wrong one. We are determined to reach our destination, even if it means enduring setbacks. We call this innate pride. At this moment, whether in the audience or online, everyone was transfixed by Jiang Huaixing at the center of the stage. Those of a certain age in the crowd saw in him a reflection of their own youthful selves, brimming with vigor and ambition. The younger audience was equally captivated by his words, feeling a surge of inspiration. Online, the enthusiasm was palpable, igniting a fervor that made me feel capable of working an additional 2 hours. His eloquence stirred a passion within me. It was utterly exhilarating. When he declared born proud, he was nothing short of magnificent. Oh, how striking he was. The applause and cheers were more fervent than ever, and despite Jiang Huaixing's repeated attempts to calm the crowd, it took some time for the clamor to subside. Returning to the matter at hand, I am certain everyone is eager to learn the price of our Huaixing X1. Before that, let us take one last look at the Huaixing X1. The large screen displayed the promotional poster of the Huaixing X1 once again. Our Huaixing X1 boasts a 4.0-inch display, a robust 1930 mAh battery, an 8-megapixel rear camera, and a 50-megapixel front camera, along with a solid architecture and a flawlessly compatible operating system, CXUI, among other features. Its advantages are numerous, so I shall refrain from listing them all. The Huaixing X1 stands as one of the pinnacles of both aesthetics and performance in this era. After boasting about the Huaixing X1, Jiang Huaixing finally revealed the price. The 16GB version of our Huaixing X1 is priced at 2,799 yuan, while the 32GB version is set at 3,299 yuan. Our Huaixing X1 is available in several stunning colors: obsidian black, moonlight white, glacier blue, forest green, and twilight purple. Upon hearing these unique color names, competitors wore expressions of envy, surprised that even the names of colors could be so distinctive. While there are many things I cannot replicate at this time, I will certainly take the opportunity to rethink the naming of phone colors when I return. The two models will be available for online pre-sale starting at midnight, and sales will officially commence tomorrow morning, December 2nd, at 9 a.m. Of course, we currently have only 150,000 units of the Huaixing X1 available, constrained by funding and production capacity. This limited quantity has necessitated that Jiang Huaixing invest a significant portion of his resources, even putting extreme science electronics up for collateral. Should the sales exceed expectations, we may be compelled to initiate a strategy of scarcity. Should the sales perform well, Jiang Huaixing will find it easier to secure further financing, obtaining more funds to commence large-scale production. The success of the Huaixing X1 is paramount. Failure could lead to bankruptcy. Jiang Huaixing continued, expressing gratitude to the nation, the current era, the esteemed guests present, and the friends watching our Huaixing X1 launch event. He extended heartfelt thanks to all his colleagues at Huaixing Technology. Chapter 22. The launch event concludes. Jiang Huaixing clasped his hands together and bowed slightly in appreciation. At this point, the launch event for the Huaixing X1 was drawing to a close. I wish to convey to everyone that while the Huaixing X1 may have areas that require improvement, we welcome your suggestions on our official website and will strive to enhance our offerings. I sincerely hope for your understanding, and I express my gratitude in advance. Jiang Huaixing then executed a deep 90-degree bow, lingering for a moment before straightening up. Now, it is time to bid farewell. On behalf of all of us at Huaixing Technology, I extend my heartfelt thanks to all the guests for attending our launch event. I hope to see you again soon. Jiang Huaixing raised a hand in a wave of goodbye, and the audience reciprocated. The stage lights dimmed, and Jiang Huaixing exited the stage. Thus, the launch event for the Huaixing X1 concluded successfully. After the event, the audience exited in an orderly fashion. Lei Jun from Xiaomi, having observed the entire launch, pondered thoughtfully. Initially, he had doubted Jiang Huaixing's ability to control the rhythm of the presentation due to his youth. To his surprise, not only did Jiang manage it well, but he excelled. Lei Jun attentively watched the entire event, realizing that he might have much to discuss with this young man. He had not anticipated that a mobile phone launch could unfold in such a manner. Many aspects of the event resonated deeply with him, akin to his own speaking style, which he felt could yield equally impressive results. Upon returning, He resolved to review the event closely, aiming to make his own launch equally engaging. The simple yet direct comparisons, the humorous and charming rhetoric, and the captivating speech combined to create an extraordinary effect, underscoring the success of this launch. The media, in particular, found an abundance of material to cover. Whether it was the youthful and charismatic president of Huaixing Technology, the event's distinctive nature, or the incident where the Huaixing X1 fell without damage, the stories to be written were plentiful. All of it was positive news, regardless of any potential negatives. The generous fees from Jiang Huaixing ensured that even any criticisms would go unwritten. They believed this launch was on par with, if not superior to, the Apple iPhone 4 launch. The media hurriedly packed their belongings, eager to interview Jiang Huaixing afterward. Prior to the launch, their enthusiasm had been modest, but now, they sensed a significant opportunity that could lead to promotions and pay raises. Meanwhile, the representatives from Taobao and Jingxi were discussing supply issues with Jiang Huaixing. After witnessing the launch, particularly the representative from Jingxi felt that the Huaixing X1 could significantly enhance their sales of 3C products, prompting a request for more stock and production capacity from Jiang Huaixing to sell in their stores. Based on their instincts, they believed this phone would sell exceptionally well. However, no matter how eager they were, the current supply of the Huaixing X1 was limited to 150,000 units, with an additional 100,000 units possible with existing hardware. Any further production would depend on future financing. This necessity for online sales was also a strategic choice for Jiang Huaixing. Online channels allow for direct management and rapid capital recovery. In contrast, offline channels rely on distributors, which not only compresses prices, but also introduces payment delays. Quite simply, Huaixing Technology could not afford the prolonged wait. Numerous suppliers still awaited payment, and the company was running low on funds, which was the fundamental reason behind Jiang Huaixing's decision for online retail. As Jiang Huaixing made his appearance, a flurry of cameras and microphones surged toward him. Mr. Jiang, what do you perceive as the greatest advantage of the Huaixing X1 compared to other smartphones on the market? Upon hearing this question, Jiang Huaixing responded, "We focus on creating better products for our users." Mr. Jiang, I have a question. This model is priced higher than most domestic brands. What is its core competitive advantage? Jiang Huaixing replied, "First and foremost, our phone utilizes a custom-optimized system, CXUI, which ensures that day-to-day operations far exceed the industry average, allowing users to truly experience the convenience of a smart device." Jiang Huaixing paused thoughtfully before continuing. "Mr. Jiang, I have another question for you." He noticed someone straining to get closer and invited, "Please, go ahead." Mr. Jiang, your hosting of the launch event was nothing short of textbook perfect. Do you believe Huaixing Technology has succeeded in creating a smart device? After a moment of silence, Jiang Huaixing responded, based on the audience's reaction, "I believe it was a success." Mr. Jiang, I have more questions. The reporter's words were abruptly interrupted by another journalist. After approximately half an hour, Jiang Huaixing concluded the interview during a series of questions and answers. Following the interview, Jiang Huaixing returned to the company with colleagues from Huaixing Technology. As soon as he stepped through the doorway, the sounds of firecrackers burst into his ears, followed by a shower of petals cascading through the air. The entire company erupted in unison, exclaiming, "Congratulations, boss. The launch event was a resounding success." At that moment, Jiang Huaixing was deeply moved. He clasped his hands together, bowed slightly, and expressed his gratitude. "Thank you all for your hard work. I am aware that everyone has been exhausted during this time for Huaixing Technology. I truly appreciate you waiting for me so late. I am sincerely grateful." Jiang Huaixing had not anticipated this gesture, especially considering how tired everyone had been recently. Thus, he had decided to let everyone leave early today. He then took the relevant personnel from the launch event to a hotel. Originally, he had prepared gifts to be distributed the following day at work, but since everyone was present, he decided to give them out immediately. "Su-Yun, please bring out the gifts I prepared." Upon hearing this, Su-Yun promptly went to retrieve them. The anticipation among the crowd grew palpable. Soon, several large boxes were brought into the lobby, and Su-Yun handed Jiang Huaixing a megaphone. Holding the megaphone, Jiang Huaixing said, "I am truly grateful for everyone's contributions during this period. However, mere words seem insufficient to convey my sincerity. So I have decided to present you with a special gift." At this, the eyes of everyone present sparkled with excitement. The gift was a Huaixing X1 smartphone for each employee, with their respective employee numbers engraved on each device, making every phone unique and a personal gift. The crowd erupted with cheers and jubilant shouts, their excitement soaring to new heights. Chapter 23. After the launch event, whether at CXUI Electronics or by Huaixing Technology, everyone received a gift. Now, according to employee numbers, I will call upon each colleague to come forward and collect their gift. Starting with by Huaixing Technology, he called out, "Employee number 001, Jiang Huaixing. This one is mine, so I will set it aside. Employee number 002, Zhou Ku. I put considerable effort into recruiting him, and he has not disappointed our expectations, successfully leading the R&D department to create the Huaixing X1. Employee number 003, Zhang Yuan. He is the primary contributor to our CXUI operating system. Employee number 004, Jiang Huaixing. Employee number 021, Wang Qi. Employee number 031, Su Yun." With each smartphone he handed out, Jiang Huaixing shared a bit about the individual's contributions to the company. Receiving a gift directly from the boss, along with heartfelt thanks for their efforts, touched everyone's hearts, regardless of whether they were department managers or assembly line workers. Each gift was specially packaged, adorned with names and words of gratitude, making it manageable to keep track of the hundreds of employees involved. Although the smartphones were priced over $3,000, which might not seem excessive, they were significant enough to enhance employee morale for an extended period, proving to be a worthwhile investment. Even if the cost was not substantial in the eyes of department managers, the sentiment moved them deeply. Once all the gifts were distributed, a surge of motivation filled the room. However, as Jiang Huaixing noticed the time approaching 11 o'clock, he encouraged everyone to head home early and to travel safely. After seeing everyone off, he was the last to leave. Typically, the articles written by journalists would be reviewed and published the following day. However, considering the multitude of highlights from the Huaixing X1 launch event and the influence of monetary capacity, the articles were released that very night. Most news coverage centered around Jiang Huaixing, the launch event, and the Huaixing X1. Huaixing X1, transforming the world. Jiang Huaixing, unafraid of challenges. This is our innate pride at just 22 years old. Who is this young and handsome individual? This man shocked the entire audience. What happened? Huaixing X1 launch event. A potential industry benchmark, a launch event that competes with Apple. Is this just a stunt or does it truly possess strength? Many young people who had stayed up late stumbled upon these news articles and could not resist the curiosity to click and explore. Those who had missed the live stream were now eager to watch the replay. Enthusiasts of the Huaixing X1, upon witnessing Jiang Huaixing's responses, began to engage fervently. Wow. Sisters, is this the celebrity? Butler, in 3 minutes, gather all the information about this young man. I can't believe there's someone more handsome than me in this world. I declare, this is the premier smartphone launch event in the country. Wow. Our focus is on creating better products for users. That statement is so elegant. I agree. Unlike some brands that only belittle other smartphones. Wow, this phone is stunning. I adore this twilight purple. Yes, sister, I also love this color. Oh no. I'm a boy now. What's wrong? Can't boys choose purple? These color names are so beautiful. I want them all. Just in time for me to change my phone. I'll try this Huaixing X1. I feel like Jiang Huaixing was glowing on stage. After watching the Huaixing X1 launch, other events seem dull in comparison. I think it falls far short of the Apple IV. It's not even in the same league. Exactly, the Apple IV is the best phone. Domestic phones are just trash. Yes, sister, I believe only the Apple IV qualifies as a smartphone. Exactly. Oh. But Jiang Huaixing never claimed the Huaixing X1 was the best smartphone. That's right. He said it was a tribute. Exactly. The foreign giants haven't even spoken yet, and their minions are already defending them. Haha. I just think the Huaixing X1 is more beautiful than the Apple IV. Indeed, the Apple IV only comes in 2 colors. While classic, I prefer purple. Absolutely, purple has such charm. I'm different. I like white, hee. Upstairs. Why do I feel like your opinion is different from ours? And watching the launch, the Huaixing X1 doesn't seem to be that inferior to the Apple IV. Plus, it's several thousand cheaper. Exactly, I think it's quite cost-effective. Let us show them that China can produce excellent smartphones. In my previous life, I was betrayed by a brother, leading to my company's bankruptcy and a tragic end on the streets. In this life, I have been reborn as Jiang Huaixing, and I shall reclaim everything, leading Huaixing to the pinnacle of the world. Wow, that is intriguing. When will it be written? Hurry and write it. I can't wait. Following the Huaixing X1 launch event, the online buzz intensified. Some disparaged Huaixing, while others supported it, along with a crowd of onlookers. This, however, clearly indicated that the Huaixing X1 launch event was undoubtedly a success. As long as people are discussing it, whether positively or negatively, it generates heat. Moreover, among these individuals, there might even be employees from Huaixing Technology itself. Huaixing Technology was like a husky mingling among wolves. In comparison to those prominent enterprises, it appears rather out of place. However, this launch event has introduced the public to the Huaixing brand. Simultaneously, it catapulted Jiang Huaixing into fame, as both his charisma and eloquence have garnered him considerable attention. Although the Huaixing X1 is priced on the higher end among domestic smartphones, which invites criticism, this is not necessarily a detriment. Consider the likes of Apple and Huawei, similarly priced and often criticized. Yet, the more they are disparaged, the more they are purchased. It is essential to recognize that high pricing is not a flaw. Rather, subpar smartphones are. Jiang Huaixing can confidently assert that, at present, few smartphones can rival the performance of the Huaixing X1, suggesting it still has potential. Furthermore, a visually appealing phone with a premium price tag can satisfy one's vanity. Chapter 24. Aftermath. Moreover, the Huaixing X1 merely seems expensive within the domestic market. On the international stage, it is merely positioned as a mid-range device. Given the current gap in the domestic smartphone market at this price point, it presents an opportunity to fill that void. If successful, the Huaixing X1 could become the benchmark for domestic smartphones, emerging as a leading product. While some internet users may look down upon the Huaixing X1, others express satisfaction or surprise at its arrival. Competitors, particularly those who attended the launch event and personally experienced the Huaixing X1, are left solely in astonishment. The user experience is hardly inferior to that of Apple's offerings, with deficiencies mainly in hardware specifications. In terms of operating systems, it even surpasses them slightly, all while being over 2,000 yuan more affordable. It is noteworthy that most consumers are not overly concerned with hardware specifications. They prioritize aesthetics and smooth usability, rendering other aspects less significant. Consequently, every competitor exiting the launch event felt a sense of dismay, as both the customization of the operating system and the integration of hardware necessitate an exceptional research and development team. Those outside the industry may be unaware, but industry insiders are certainly cognizant. Huaixing Technology is one of the offshoots of the former Chengxing Technology. They have investigated this company, labeling it a second-rate smartphone manufacturer, and its foray into smartphone development has not exceeded a year. This is somewhat alarming, considering that established domestic brands have invested heavily in recruiting talent and funding for smartphone development. Yet, the disparity in quality between their offerings and the Huaixing X1 is glaring. Although they may be oblivious to the extent of Huaixing Technology's R&D investment, it undoubtedly pales in comparison. This reality only intensifies their desire for a more formidable R&D team, as the importance of R&D funding is eclipsed by the need for skilled talent. The thought that such a team does not belong to them only amplifies their yearning. Li Wen, having just attended the Huaixing X1 launch event, also had the opportunity to experience the smartphone. A fan of CXUI and a tech reviewer, he harbored high expectations for the Huaixing X1 paired with CXUI, and the outcome exceeded his anticipations. The synergy between the Huaixing X1 and CXUI is nothing short of perfect, surpassing his imagination. Initially, he intended to return home and compose his review the following day, as it was already late. However, while perusing the internet, he encountered disparaging remarks about the Huaixing X1 and engaged in heated exchanges, ultimately victorious but still agitated. Consequently, he began drafting his review, intent on publishing it that very night for critics to scrutinize. Time flew as he wrote, and after an hour, he finally completed his last punctuation mark. A brief check ensued before he clicked publish. Following the publication of his review, he resumed his exchanges with detractors. Given Li Wen's modest fame in the tech community, the impact of his review spread rapidly. The Huaixing fans, or Xing Fun, were invigorated by his article, bolstering their resolve. After concluding a skirmish, Li Wen decided to rest, planning to recharge for further encounters. On December 2nd, at 9:00 a.m., Jiang Huaixing had never arrived at the office this late. Exhaustion had claimed him, and he had fallen asleep upon returning home. Upon awakening, he realized how late it had become, arriving at the office by 9:30 a.m. As he entered, his assistant, Su Yun, greeted him with palpable excitement. President Jiang Huaixing hit a jackpot. Jiang Huaixing, bewildered, inquired, "What has exploded?" The Huaixing X1. Huaixing surpassed 11,000 orders so far, and sales continue to surge. According to the e-commerce department's analysis, we anticipate breaking 30,000 orders on the first day. Jiang Huaixing, thrilled, stood up. This meant that Huaixing technology could recover substantial funds on the very first day. What does this signify? It indicates the success of the Huaixing X1. Notify the factory to ramp up production while ensuring quality. Also, contact Jiang Huaixing to communicate with suppliers to guarantee the efficiency of our supply chain. We must coordinate with the logistics platforms for timely dispatch of the phones. Jiang Huaixing sighed in relief, acknowledging the effort they had exerted to promote the product. From meticulously planning the launch event to fervently advocating online. Yet, Huaixing's brand recognition remained minimal, and public trust in domestic smartphones was still lacking compared to foreign brands. Jiang Huaixing had initially considered 10,000 orders on the first day a success, yet they had exceeded his expectations significantly. A smartphone starting at 2,799 yuan achieving over 30,000 orders on the first day would surely unsettle their domestic competitors, many of whom rarely see first-day orders surpassing 10,000. Naturally, with such initial sales figures, a major promotional campaign was imminent. What better free advertising could there be? However, the immediate priority was to urge suppliers to maintain stock levels, as many components had been financed up front. Now, with burgeoning sales and the advantages of online retail, capital recovery was swift, allowing for larger orders. That evening, the investment community experienced considerable tremors. Although Huaixing had not yet disclosed first-day sales figures, they could glean from e-commerce platforms that the Huaixing X1 sales were unprecedented among domestic smartphones. This sparked immense interest in Huaixing technology. Chapter 25. Attention from Apple. Meanwhile, at Apple's headquarters in Cupertino, California, Tim Cook was engrossed in paperwork within his office. Due to health concerns, Jobs has begun to work remotely. At present, Apple is in a transitional state resembling a dual-track system. Cook has taken the reins of the company's daily operations, while Jobs continues to wield authority over strategic decisions and serves as the spiritual leader. Despite Apple's unprecedented success, it faces numerous crises. The foremost is the health crisis of its soul, Jobs, alongside the external competitive challenges posed by the rise of Android. Beneath the surface of Apple's glory, currents of unease continue to swirl. In this context, Cook's ability to stabilize the company's daily operations and manage the complexities of a global supply chain becomes increasingly vital. Having just resolved the supply chain issue, Cook's secretary entered with an update. "Tim, I have compiled the recent information on the Chinese smartphone market. Besides several established players, a few new contenders are preparing to launch their new phones next year. Moreover, just yesterday, one of these newcomers released their new device." Upon hearing the report, Cook lifted his head. While he still deemed Chinese manufacturers inferior, he recognized the significance of the Chinese market, which is akin to a vast cake, growing ever larger in tandem with the country's rapid economic growth, a matter of potential profit for Apple. Cook took the report from his secretary. The most notable recent contender is Samsung's Galaxy S series, a product that arguably redefined an era. This smartphone, with hardware that rivals or even surpasses the iPhone 4, stands as Apple's most formidable competitor in the smartphone arena. Other legacy manufacturers have gradually fallen behind the times, and Cook's regard for them pales in comparison to that of Samsung. As he swiftly flipped through the report, he suddenly noticed the name White Star X1. Perceptively, the secretary elaborated, "This phone's operating system is notably stable and fluid. Although its hardware may not match ours, the integration of their system and device is remarkably seamless, warranting our attention. I've sent you the video of their launch event. You may wish to view it." Cook promptly opened the video on his computer and was astonished. The system showcased by the White Star X1 diverged significantly from that of the iPhone 4, while the iPhone 4 pursued an extreme realism in its interface, emulating the real world with light and texture to create a tactile experience. White Star X1 embraced a different philosophy, favoring a flat design centered on color and hierarchy, resulting in a cleaner, more streamlined interface that appeals to efficiency seekers. Based on the presentation at the launch event, the White Star X1 appeared comparable to the iPhone 4 at first glance, but the actual differences were substantial. Yet in terms of operating systems, It had already reached a level of competition. From the perspective of Whitestar X1's customized system, this manufacturer shattered Cook's preconceived notions about Chinese smartphone companies, significantly narrowing the gap between them. The secretary continued, "The company, named Whitestar Technology, has repeatedly benchmarked against us in a manner that pays homage, leveraging our traffic and popularity, boasting larger screens and longer battery life, among other claims." Cook's lips twitched at his secretary's words, his intuition warning him that this company should not be underestimated. Moreover, the Whitestar X1 illustrated that the progress of Chinese smartphones was advancing faster than he had anticipated. He instructed his secretary, "Keep a close watch on Whitestar Technology." Although the pace of development in Chinese smartphones was swift, Cook remained confident, believing that Apple would continue to lead the smartphone market now and in the future. Despite China being termed the world's factory, this also reflected a lack of respect for its independent research and development capabilities. In such an environment, Cook naturally would not place undue importance on Whitestar Technology. On December 2nd, at 9 p.m., most employees had already left for the day, though a few remained working. It was also a peak time for internet activity. During this period, the Whitestar X1 had gained considerable attention. Many tech reviewers had experienced the device and shared their reviews online. Numerous individuals had also edited the launch event video, highlighting its climactic moments with engaging background music and the charm of Jiang Huaixing, successfully propelling Whitestar X1 into the public spotlight. Many who had previously been indifferent to smartphones had, to some extent, heard of the Whitestar brand, enhancing its recognition among the general populace, particularly among female audiences, due to Jiang Huaixing's appeal, spreading as rapidly as it did among male viewers. However, this was not yet the peak of its popularity. The real test awaited on the morrow when the true performance of Whitestar would be revealed. Competitors were particularly keenly observing the sales figures of the Whitestar X1. If Whitestar succeeded, it would suggest that smartphones priced above $2,500 or even $3,000 could find a foothold in the market. They might also consider raising their own pricing to this level. Among the competitors, Lei Jun and Yu Dazue were particularly attentive, eagerly awaiting the release of the Whitestar X1 sales orders. On December 3rd, at 9 a.m., Yu Dazue was inquiring of his assistant, "Have the order numbers for the Whitestar X1 come in yet?" "Not yet," the assistant replied. "Good. Let me know the moment you hear anything." Meanwhile, not only were many competitors and media outlets waiting, but a multitude of netizens were also anticipating the sales figures of the Whitestar X1. At Whitestar Technology, Jiang Huaixing was anxiously awaiting Su Yuni to deliver the first-day sales figures. He found himself glancing at the clock every minute, never having felt time pass so slowly before. "Knock, knock, knock." Hearing the knock at the door, Jiang Huaixing called out, "Come in." Upon seeing Su Yuni, he asked, "Have the first-day sales figures for the Whitestar X1 been released?" "They have, Mr. Jiang," Su Yuni replied, handing over the report. Jiang Huaixing eagerly took the report and began to scan through it. The moment he saw the sales figures, a look of joy spread across his face. "Great, wonderful. Let us announce our first-day sales immediately. Activate all our promotional channels and ensure as many people as possible learn of our sales." As 10 o'clock approached, the news of the Whitestar X1 surpassing 30,000 units in sales trended on social media. Concurrently, a wave of excitement surged online. "Wow, this is incredible. This could be considered the pinnacle of domestic smartphones." "You're absolutely right. At present, the Whitestar X1 truly stands as the best in the country. It's astonishing. Who would have thought a domestic smartphone could achieve such heights?" However, it must be said that the Whitestar X1 truly excels in aspects that other domestic phones cannot rival. Indeed, whether in aesthetics or operating system, it stands as a unique presence in the domestic market. In fact, I believe that even on a global scale, few smartphones can rival the Huaixing X1. Just yesterday, Huaixing Technology nearly reached a sales figure of 100 million. My goodness, I never imagined that earning such a significant amount of money could happen so swiftly. I declare that from this moment forth, Jiang Huaixing is my husband. Omega, my dear husband, you are simply too handsome. Who knows if this data is fabricated? Some individuals seem to revel in false statistics to gain attention. But come on, the Huaixing X1 is available on all major e-commerce platforms. And the Huaixing flagship store has displayed the sales figures. Can't you just verify it yourself? Couldn't it be that they are manipulating the numbers? Well, if you insist on arguing, there's nothing I can do. It's just impossible to reason with such people. How frustrating. These individuals truly cannot stand to see others thrive. My husband would never resort to deception. Well said, sister, I support you. I also stand by my husband. I am going to order a Huaixing X1 to show him my small support. Sister, let's go together. I too am looking to replace my old phone. At this moment, competitors such as Demi and Lei Jun gasped in astonishment upon learning of the sales figures. They anticipated that the Huaixing X1 would perform well, but never to this extent. It is worth noting that during its first month, the Meirua M8 did not disclose exact numbers, but industry insiders estimated around 50 to 60,000 units sold. In contrast, the Huaixing X1 achieved half of that figure in merely one day. Moreover, this is not a low-end device. By domestic standards, it is considered a premium smartphone. This left Demi in a state of shock, unable to regain his composure for a long time as he sat in his chair, pondering whether he could achieve similar success. Yuda Zue from Huawei also felt exhilarated upon witnessing the impressive sales of the Huaixing X1. He had been correct in his assumption that domestic smartphones could be positioned as high-end brands. His confidence in Huawei's upcoming premium model for next year surged, and he envisioned a bright future ahead. Huang Zhang from Meirua, seated before his computer, experienced a whirlwind of emotions as he observed the sales of the Huaixing X1. At that moment, he felt as though he were witnessing an ex-lover being swept away by someone else, thriving even better than himself. It was a feeling akin to that of a helpless husband. His assistant hesitated to interrupt, fearing to disturb the boss, and could tell from a distance that he was in a foul mood. Huang Zhang took a deep breath to steady himself, yet nothing seemed to alleviate his distress. At this moment, he harbored a singular thought. Once his Meirua M9 was released, he would show Jiang Huaixing and those who had departed what it truly meant to be the #1 domestic smartphone. With that, Huang Zhang slammed his fist on the desk, causing his water cup to tremble. Upon witnessing these figures, other competitors were consumed by envy and resentment, wishing to usurp Huaixing's position. Initially, the sales trajectory of the Huaixing X1 was already impressive. However, once the news of its first-day sales broke, the order volume skyrocketed. It was as if a tiger had sprouted wings, enhancing its might exponentially. In a rented room in Deep City, Li Wen, seeing the sales figures of the Huaixing X1, immediately took this data online. Anyone who dared to criticize the Huaixing X1 as inferior was met with his data chart. He then began to unleash a torrent of arguments online, emerging victorious in this exchange. Coincidentally, it was noon, and after retrieving his takeout, he began to eat while surfing the internet. Suddenly, a friend of his, also a Huaixing enthusiast, messaged him, stating he had purchased a Huaixing X1 in the twilight purple color. Shortly thereafter, he sent a payment screenshot. Li Wen glanced at the image, then at his Motorola in hand, growing increasingly dissatisfied with it. Although this phone was a recent model from last year and had been upgraded to CXUI, after experiencing the Huaixing X1, his desire for it intensified. In truth, he was financially stable, earning a decent monthly salary. The more he thought about it, the more he felt drawn to his friend's twilight purple Huaixing X1, its image becoming clearer in his mind. Resolutely, he decided to act. He opened the Jingxi webpage, and the sight of the Huaixing X1 greeted him. Eagerly, he placed an order for the same twilight purple color, convinced of its aesthetic appeal. Soon after, he sent his friend a screenshot of his own payment, declaring, "I bought one too. Humph. Omega. Wait, bro, if I recall correctly, you just changed your phone last year, right? And it wasn't too cheap either. What will you do with the old one?" "The old one? It's perfect for my dad. Our current model is quite outdated. It's a good idea, especially since my new phone runs CXUI, which is user-friendly." Such scenarios unfolded across the land of Huaxiao like mushrooms after the rain. Meanwhile, the investment community was buzzing with excitement. In their eyes, Huaixing technology was akin to a golden goose. According to their investigations, although Huaixing technology was not short on funds, to scale up production, they needed to secure additional financing. And they, the investors, had plenty of capital to offer. Given the current momentum of the Huaixing X1, the future of Huaixing technology appeared boundless. It could be said that any money invested now would yield substantial returns once Huaixing technology went public. Before the advent of the Huaixing X1, due to the dominance of the Pinghua 4, the investment sector, including the tech industry, considered smartphones a blue ocean with immense market demand. Although the current leader, Nokia, was gradually declining, new forces like Pinghua and Samsung were swiftly emerging. This ongoing competition in the smartphone arena meant that new players could still carve out their share of the market. The emergence of the App Store and various Android app stores in 2008 signified a shift from a hardware-centric commercial model to a hardware-software service ecosystem. Pingguo was the pioneer of this blue ocean. Thus, investors were poised with their funds, ready to invest, closely monitoring potential smartphone manufacturers. Naturally, their focus was primarily on the global market and foreign brands. They held little hope for domestic manufacturers, as they primarily occupied the low-end market, plagued by homogeneity and a lack of innovation. Just as these investors began to lose interest in domestic brands, the Huaixing X1 emerged. Unlike other domestic smartphones that became ensnared in the low-end market, it broke free and ventured into the mid to high-end smartphone sector. Moreover, the Huaixing X1 boasted its own innovative features, with its CXUI being hailed by many mobile enthusiasts as the best Android system. Some even argued that its flat design offered a superior operational experience compared to the skeuomorphic design of Pingguo, and a significant number of supporters echoed this sentiment. Most importantly, Jiang Huaixing led the charge, achieving over 30,000 units sold on the first day. Without this achievement, no amount of boasting would have garnered their attention. At most, they would have offered a passing glance, and that would have been the end of it. The first to contact Jiang Huaixing was Shun Nampeng from CXUI Capital. Under his leadership, CXUI has shown a pronounced preference for sectors such as e-commerce, consumer goods, and technology. Upon discovering the Huaixing X1, he promptly sought out Jiang Huaixing's contact information. After a brief conversation, they arranged to meet the following day for a more in-depth discussion. Subsequently, Jiang received numerous calls from various investment firms, all eager to connect with him. Naturally, Jiang was open to all inquiries and scheduled meetings for the next day to delve deeper into discussions. However, as the influx of calls became overwhelming, he decided to filter the subsequent inquiries and only confirm meetings with a select few. Currently, Huaixing Technology and JIC Electronics operate from separate offices. Although they share the same owner, they function as distinct entities. Fortunately, Jiang's father had established both the factory and office buildings on a substantial scale. These facilities and industrial land belong to JIC Electronics, making Huaixing Technology merely a tenant. It is anticipated that Huaixing Technology will eventually relocate, as the space will become insufficient for their growing needs, despite being under the same ownership. At present, Huaixing Technology's most pressing concern is securing funding to expand production. Upon Jiang's arrival at the conference room, representatives from multiple investment firms, along with executives from Huaixing Technology and a legal team, were already present. The investment representatives greeted Jiang with smiles and enthusiastic warmth. These individuals had already been pre-screened by Jiang, ensuring that only the most relevant attendees were present. "Hello, Mr. Jiang. I am Li Yuntian from IDC Capital, and it is a pleasure to meet you," said a middle-aged man in a black suit. IDC Capital is regarded as one of the oldest and most influential venture capital firms in the country, with a broad investment portfolio. They have a sharp instinct for opportunities in the internet sector, having participated in significant funding rounds, including the Series A for a prominent rice brand. "Mr. Jiang, we all watched the launch event you hosted. Our CEO, Mr. Xiong, remarked that it was the best mobile phone launch he had ever witnessed." Li Yuntian continued. Hearing this, Jiang responded humbly, "I am truly honored to know that Mr. Xiong is paying attention to our modest endeavors." After exchanging pleasantries, the attendees returned to their respective seats. As there were too many investors eager to converse with Jiang, the discussion turned to the matter of financing. Observing the room filled with eager faces, Jiang felt a wave of emotion. He instructed his assistant to close the door and draw the curtains, and the spirited debate commenced. The soundproofing of the conference room ensured that those outside could hardly hear the intensity of the discussions, yet the entire company was keenly attentive to the proceedings, eager to learn the outcome of the deliberations. Time slipped away as the participants engaged in fervent debate, nearly reaching the point of conflict. The representatives from the investment firms had a singular focus: to invest in Huaixing Technology, having recognized its inherent value. However, their discussions centered on the company's valuation, the amount of funding sought, and the distribution of equity. Unlike typical startups, Huaixing Technology had already proven its worth, with a valuation estimated between 1.6 to 1.8 billion US, equivalent to over 10 billion in domestic currency. For this funding round, they aimed to raise at least 100 million US, an amount that could take several lifetimes to earn for many. Consequently, Each participant was intent on ensuring their interests were safeguarded, as even minor miscalculations could result in substantial financial repercussions. The stakes were high, and no one was willing to concede. The discussions continued from 10 in the morning until 6 in the evening, with only a brief pause for a simple lunch before resuming. After an exhaustive deliberation, Huaixing Technology's valuation was finally settled at $1.67 billion, approximately $11.3 billion in domestic currency. The investors collectively committed $186 million, resulting in a 10 dilution of shares, which raised the post-financing valuation to roughly $1.856 billion. With the assistance of multiple legal teams, each firm signed meticulous agreements with Huaixing Technology, thus concluding the financing arrangements. Post-financing. The ownership structure of Huaixing Technology reflected 90 held by Xinghe Holdings and 10 distributed among the various investment firms. Chapter 28. The impact of a billion-dollar valuation following this financing round. Huaixing Technology temporarily alleviated its financial burdens. This marked the company's first infusion of external capital. As for Jiang's subsequent investments, they were borrowed funds meant to be repaid. Additionally, some of Jiang Electronics' capital, previously pledged to banks, was also lent to Huaixing Technology. These debts needed to be settled, as prior to financing, Huaixing Technology was significantly indebted. Now, they could clear all obligations in one fell swoop. Furthermore, the costs incurred by Jiang Electronics for manufacturing on behalf of Huaixing Technology, previously charged at cost price, would now transition to standard service fees. However, these concerns paled in comparison to the recent financing milestone, which injected a substantial $183 million, over $1.2 billion in domestic currency, into Huaixing Technology. Jiang had never encountered such an amount of money before. This was arguably the largest Series A financing in the country to date, a feat unprecedented. This distinction set Huaixing Technology apart from other startups, which often struggled to secure substantial funding during their early stages. The ability to accomplish so much at the outset was a testament to Huaixing Technology's position of strength during the financing discussions. They had demonstrated their value and were not in dire need of funds. Rather, they sought capital to rapidly scale production. The urgency of expansion was paramount. A slow approach could prove detrimental, as time is money. Delays could jeopardize future sales, particularly with impending competitors on the horizon. Jiang leveraged this urgency during negotiations, confidently articulating ambitions for mobile internet innovations, proprietary chip development, and the establishment of a self-sustaining supply chain to create a protective moat around the smartphone market. This strategic vision, grounded in the establishment of a long-term competitive advantage, captivated the investors, who were intrigued by the potential of Huaixing Technology's future. Despite their initial unfamiliarity with such concepts, the investors found Jiang's assertions compelling, sparking their imaginations about the possibilities ahead. Jiang's articulate vision resonated with them, heightening their interest and desire to engage further. Investors are often drawn to the charisma and confidence of their potential partners. If one cannot convincingly advocate for their success, they have little hope of securing investment. Especially when Jiang Huaixing was boasting, it felt incredibly captivating, as if he were radiating light, exuding charm in abundance. Consequently, one by one, the investors acquiesced, leading to a valuation of Whitestar Technology at $1.67 billion. Of course, Whitestar Technology implemented an A-B share structure, dividing the company's stock into two categories, Class A and Class B, both possessing identical economic rights, namely, rights to dividends and profits upon sale, but differing in voting rights. With Class A shares non-convertible to Class B shares. Class B shares, held by Jiang Huaixing, commanded significant voting power. 1 share of B stock equals 10 votes, while 1 share of a stock equals 1 vote, ensuring Jiang's control over the company. This effectively mitigated any potential interference from investors regarding Jiang Huaixing's governance of Whitestar Technology. Regardless of future financing rounds, Jiang's leadership would remain unchallenged. Naturally, with newfound wealth, one must also ensure that employees are not left wanting. While Jiang enjoys the meat, they too should partake in the broth. Thus, Jiang established a virtual stock option pool, allocating 10 of the company's total shares as virtual options. Dividends from these virtual shares would be drawn from the company's annual net profit increment. Should the net profit fail to meet targets, no dividends would be issued for that year. In the event of losses, virtual shareholders would not bear any loss responsibility. The scheme is set in 5-year cycles, with the possibility of renewal or adjustment based on the company's development at the end of each cycle. Grants would occur post-annual review meetings, formalized through a virtual option agreement delineating rights and obligations. Following the grant, a 3-year lock-in period would be established, with the options vesting evenly over 2 years thereafter. During this lock-in, employees would retain their rights while fulfilling their duties. Holders of virtual shares would not participate in shareholder meetings or board decisions, nor possess voting or information rights, except for stipulated dividends and value appreciation information. On December 6th, at 9 a.m., news of White Star Technologies' successful financing surged onto trending topics. White Star Technologies' valuation surpasses $10 billion, and White Star Technology raises $186 million, sparked a fervor online. At this moment, the internet buzzed with excitement. What have I just seen? White Star Technology is now a billion-dollar enterprise. This must be the highest for Series A financing in Huaxia. White Star Technology is phenomenal. Oh, my husband is extraordinary. Hasn't White Star Technology only recently been established? It has already surpassed $100 billion in valuation. How outrageous. Reborn in 2010. I have become Jiang Huaixing. This time I shall become a billionaire, and this will be my next book, so stay tuned. Oh, I await it. You must write. Humph. Why is it all male-centric? I wish to read female-centric literature. Would any sister pen a tale about my husband? No problem, sister. I shall begin writing now, titled Through Time. I became Jiang Huaixing's favorite. Love you, sister. I can hardly wait. At this moment, rival Demi's Lei Jun was elated over Demi's recent completion of Series A financing when Lin Bing suddenly walked in. Lei, did you see today's news? What news? Lei Jun replied, perplexed. The news about White Star Technologies' valuation exceeding $100 billion, and they raised $186 million. What? This is unbelievable. Lei Jun exclaimed, astonished. Indeed. I didn't expect it either. Lin Bing replied with a wry smile. No, I never doubted White Star Technology could reach a valuation over $100 billion. I was merely surprised at how swiftly they achieved it. This news has gradually amplified White Star Technology's influence, igniting widespread public discussion. White Star Technology has truly emerged as a new titan within the tech sphere. The most immediate consequence is that the sales of the White Star X1 have skyrocketed, soaring like a rocket in a steep ascent. Chapter 29. Insufficient production capacity. Since resolving the financing issue, White Star Technology has entered a state of overdrive. With everyone working overtime, busier than ever, the tasks at hand are numerous. The foremost challenge to address is the issue of inadequate production capacity. Since the valuation of White Star Technology was disclosed, within an hour, the White Star X1 was completely sold out. Consequently, White Star Technology was compelled to adopt a hunger marketing strategy. Fortunately, financing brought not only capital, but also the networks of those investment firms. With their support, White Star Technology has entered the fast lane. The mobile phone accessories that previously required significant effort to procure are now prioritized with favorable terms. Even the subcontractors are high-profile manufacturers with excellent reputations and quality. Nevertheless, the demand for the White Star X1 still exceeds supply. Additionally, White Star Technology faces a shortage of personnel. This is relatively easy to resolve, given the company's burgeoning reputation. With Jiang Huaixing's charm enhancing their allure, new recruits quickly adapt to their roles. However, the influx of new hires has rendered the existing space inadequate. Thus, Jiang Huaixing is also seeking a new office location. An overwhelming number of tasks lie ahead. Were it not for the charm-enhancing work efficiency and motivation, other companies would have faltered under such pressure. White Star Technology is not merely utilizing one person for 2 roles. Rather, one individual is performing the work of 5 or 6, with each working at least 5 hours of overtime daily. Furthermore, these individuals are not slacking off. They are diligently engaged in their tasks. Jiang Huaixing is often taken aback by the intensity of this situation, even overhearing discussions about work in the restroom stalls. Previously, Jiang Huaixing believed the charm enhancement was most beneficial for research speed and work efficiency, but now he realizes that fostering work enthusiasm is equally valuable. The busier they are, the more the terrifying advantage of this enhancement becomes evident. Fortunately, the first attribute drawn was charm. Had it been another, success might have been achieved, but certainly not this swiftly. Jiang Huaixing reflects with admiration. At present, the paramount concern for Jiang Huaixing and White Star Technology is to ensure the quality and production speed of the White Star X1, leaving no room for error and striving to capture market share. Thus, even as Jiang worries about the employees' health, he can only offer them financial incentives for comfort. Once the recruitment and training of new talent are completed, the workload will ease. How is the production line at JIC Electronics progressing? President Jiang. All production lines at JIC are currently operating in overdrive for the White Star X1. The new production line has been established, but due to insufficient personnel, all workers are on 12-hour shifts, and equipment utilization is around 95. We need to recruit more staff promptly to alleviate their burden. After understanding the situation at JIC Electronics and other subcontractors, Jiang Huaixing stood by the window, feeling the bright sunshine streaming in. At this moment, Jiang Huaixing was browsing the comments on White Star Technologies' official Weibo. What is happening? How is the White Star X1 sold out? Yes, I just received my paycheck and was waiting to switch my phone. Hurry, I can't wait. Exactly. Can production be expedited? I am willing to pay extra. Is there anyone who can sell me their White Star X1? My son's birthday wish is to have a White Star X1. Darling, can you get me a White Star X1? President Jiang, I am your half-brother. Could you kindly gift me a White Star X1? Mr. Jiang, do you still recall last year, that summer by the Daming Lake, when you promised to gift me a White Star X1? Ha ha ha, you all are so witty. What is so special about a mere smartphone? Just send it to me, and I shall test it for you. I can hear your scheming all the way in the capital. I am Qin Shi Huang, and all I lack is a mobile phone to summon my army. Is there anyone who could send me a White Star X1? After I conquer the world, I shall bestow upon you the title of a regional leader. Upon reading these playful comments, Jiang Huaixing couldn't help but chuckle. At present, the supply of the White Star X1 has been depleted, with pre-orders piling up excessively. If it weren't for the remaining stock, Jiang Huaixing would be at a loss. The primary production force still lies with JIC Electronics. Although the White Star X1's manufacturing is contracted to Biotti, they are still in the crucial phase of urgent production adjustments, and it will take some time before they can commence full-scale manufacturing. Thus, the White Star X1 is only available in limited pre-sale batches of 30,000 units every few days to avoid overwhelming the production capacity with excessive orders. Currently, Jiang Huaixing remains at the company, refraining from public appearances. Unable to locate him, the media has turned to interview Jiang Huaixing, the general manager of White Star Technology. Speaking of Jiang Huaixing, he is indeed a delightful surprise. Jiang Huaixing personally recruited him. He had previously held an executive position in Silicon Valley in the beautiful country, demonstrating exceptional capabilities. He bears a resemblance to Tim Cook, albeit a more modest version. Had he not been unable to endure the discrimination he faced abroad and been a staunch advocate of remaining unmarried, he would not have returned to his homeland. Jiang Huaixing's acquaintance with him was serendipitous. On the day Jiang returned to the country, Jiang was in the capital on a business trip, preparing to return to Shenzhen when he encountered Jiang at the airport. Jiang was disheartened, having lost his wallet and knowing no one in the country. Observing his forlorn demeanor, Jiang struck up a conversation. Thus, Jiang learned of his circumstances and felt a pang of sympathy, offering him the cash he had on hand. Initially, Jiang was reluctant to accept, but Jiang insisted, suggesting that since Jiang had no immediate plans, he could join White Star Technology. Jiang had not given it much thought. As it was merely a casual conversation and not a formal interview, he was unaware of Jiang's capabilities, simply wishing to lend a hand. After a brief discussion, Jiang contemplated for a moment and agreed to join White Star Technology. Jiang Huaixing then learned of Jiang Huaixing's strengths, discovering his remarkable expertise in supply chain management and operational prowess. Coincidentally, Jiang was in need of talent in that area. Jiang willingly tackled the supply chain challenges, astonishingly resolving the long-standing issues with the supply of smartphone screens that Jiang and his team had struggled to negotiate. He subsequently offered numerous invaluable suggestions regarding company operations. At that time, White Star Technology was also in need of a general manager, and Jiang promptly promoted him to that position. Thus, Jiang Huaixing has become the second-in-command at White Star Technology, and Jiang plans to entrust him with further management responsibilities. Consequently, for both major and minor matters, Jiang has delegated authority to Jiang. Just like this interview, since Jiang is not making an appearance, the media has turned to Jiang Huaixing for insights. Chapter 30. The second entry, a group of journalists, is interviewing Jiang Huaixing. Hello, Mr. Jiang. Could you elaborate on why White Star X1 is undergoing a strategy of scarcity marketing? Is it to stimulate consumer competition? Upon hearing this question, Jiang was momentarily taken aback before responding. At White Star Technology, we have never intended to engage in scarcity marketing. The primary reason for this phenomenon is that our team initially underestimated the sales projections. As a result, once launched, the order volume exceeded expectations by several multiples. Currently, we are coordinating the supply chain daily, working overtime to ramp up production, as we are concerned about keeping our supporters waiting too long. We sincerely apologize. We intended to gradually increase supply, but we did not anticipate such overwhelming recognition of the White Star X1. After hearing this response, another reporter posed a question. Mr. Jiang, what do you believe is the core reason for the explosive success of the White Star X1? Jiang replied, there are many factors contributing to the popularity of the White Star X1. However, I believe the most significant aspect is our commitment to meticulously refining every detail, allowing our customers to truly feel the sincerity of White Star technology. A further inquiry arose from another journalist. Will the shortage of White Star X1 affect consumer trust? Are you worried that competitors might seize the opportunity to capture market share? Jiang, after a moment of silence, replied, to be candid, there is certainly concern. After all, anyone would feel anxious when they cannot acquire what they desire. However, please rest assured, we are diligently monitoring production capacity, urging the factories and supply chain to expedite their processes, with the aim of replenishing stock as swiftly as possible, so as not to disappoint our customers. As for competition, the market inherently entails competition. This is perfectly normal. Our foremost focus should be on perfecting our products. As long as our customers believe in the quality of the White Star X1, even if they need to wait temporarily, I trust they will remain inclined to choose us. When Jiang Huaixing's interview was published online, it sparked a considerable uproar. Particularly among domestic competitors, there was a palpable mix of envy and admiration, their eyes turning green with jealousy. It was unclear whether they were envious of the White Star X1 sales performance or of the fact that someone like Jiang Huaixing belonged to White Star Technology. On the internet, comments flowed in. Wow, the representatives from White Star Technology articulate so eloquently. I could listen to them forever. Indeed, whether it's Mr. Jiang or Mr. Jiang, their words are so soothing. Oh my, White Star Technology is truly a treasure. Every interview leaves me in awe. No wonder the people from White Star Technology are impressive. It's a shame they're still not as good as my husband. Of course, my husband Jiang Huaixing is the best in the world. Absolutely right, sister. Oh, judging by this person's tone, I still don't know when I will be able to snag a White Star X1. Oh dear, you boys are so annoying. Could you let us girls have a chance first? The aesthetics of the White Star X1 are perfectly tailored for us. Oh come on, why not? I think the CXUI that accompanies the White Star X1 is more suitable for us boys to play games and watch videos. Suddenly, someone posted a video. In the video, a young man was showing off his twilight purple White Star X1. As he flaunted his phone, he remarked, it seems there is no difficulty in purchasing the White Star X1. Sometimes when you miss out, don't blame others. Reflect on your own actions. Did you wait an hour in advance? Did you find a location with a fast internet connection? If you didn't do these, what right do you have to complain? Wow, incredible. I actually got the most sought-after twilight purple color. Why? Oh why? Can everyone else snag one but not me? Hey there, could you sell me your phone? Just sell it to me, and I will give you a pair of authentic black silk stockings. Truly, the twilight purple is astonishingly beautiful. So many have managed to acquire the White Star X1. Why can't I be one of them? Brother, I called you brother. There were too many people outside. Could you please sell me this White Star X1? I beg you. When will I ever have my own White Star X1? Following this video, numerous fans flocked to the official Weibo of White Star Technology to leave comments. When will my White Star X1 finally be produced? Oh, how I lament. You were fortunate enough to secure yours, while I remain empty-handed. Is there any chance to let me have a turn? There was a moment when I could have swiftly acquired the White Star X1, yet I hesitated. Now, in hindsight, I deeply regret my indecision. If only I could have another opportunity, I would resolutely choose to purchase the White Star X1 at once, and if given the choice of color, I would select the enchanting twilight purple. Jiang Huaixing has also seen Jiang Huaixing's interview video and increasingly feels that entrusting White Star Technology to him is a decision perfectly suited for the future. One must understand that leading a company requires not only exceptional ability, but also a high emotional intelligence to avoid alienating others. While Jiang Huaixing pondered these matters, a voice suddenly emanated. Ding! Congratulations, host. Your prestige points have reached 1 million. Would you like to participate in a lottery? Upon hearing the system's voice, Jiang Huaixing was instantly overwhelmed with joy. Though the system often manifested a subtle presence, it does not imply that Jiang Huaixing deemed it unhelpful. Quite the contrary. He believes the system is the most vital asset in his journey through this world. After all, this system serves as his greatest ally on the path to success. Although the system's presence may be understated, it is because the attributes it offers are passive. Passive implies that no active trigger is required. Simply meeting the conditions allows for continuous effect. He feels that passivity is preferable to activity, as the latter necessitates personal involvement, while the former operates independently, offering a distinctly different experience. When the system indicated he could once again partake in the lottery, Jiang Huaixing eagerly prepared to commence. He called upon the system in his mind, and the system panel materialized before his eyes. Black Technology Attribute Lottery System. Owned attributes. Succubus. Lottery chances. 1. Jiang Huaixing took a deep breath and then mentally commanded, System, initiate the lottery. Ding. Lottery commencing. Extracting attributes. Congratulations, host. You have obtained an attribute,